It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 976, the 13-nation group formulates a defense plan. For the first time in the world, the Latin American 13 group has drawn up a defense plan to prevent attacks from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We strongly condemn the Austro-Hungarian Empire's invasion of Mexico, a member of the Latin American 13 alliance. All members of the 13 group believe that the Austro-Hungarian Empire should withdraw from Mexican territory, including the Yucatan Peninsula. No one can get away with offending a member of the 13 group. All members of the Latin American 13 group, members include the Netherlands, Ecuador, Venezuela, Colombia, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, Belize, and Mexico, are very dissatisfied with the Austro-Hungarian Empire's invasion of the American town of Latam, so the group is drafting the world's first overall defense plan, mainly to deal with possible attacks from the Austro-Hungarian Empire on Latin America. According to officials of the organization, since all member states did not object, a consensus was reached. At the same time, in Ecuador, several presidents or defense ministers of the 13 group member states arrived at the headquarters in Quito that day to support the Mexican delegation attending the meeting. The delegation became the most popular team in the audience. The other 12 countries all expressed their firm support for Mexico. Mexican President González publicly expressed his gratitude to these allies for their support in Mexico City, and met with the heads of the embassies of each member state in Mexico, who all attended a press conference with González in Mexico City. González said at the joint press conference that if Mexico negotiates with Austria-Hungary now, it will only freeze the war, freeze the pain and suffering. What we need is real peace, so the Austro-Hungarian army must really withdraw from our territory, not just the town of Latam temporarily occupied, but also the Yucatan Peninsula occupied by the Austro-Austrian Empire more than a decade ago. The whole world knows that it is still Mexico, and that the Austro-Hungarian Empire took it from us. The words of Mexican President González were nodded in agreement by the ambassadors of the other 12 countries in front of all the reporters. Obviously, they were openly testing the pressure on the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This shows that the 12 countries will stand with Mexico. At the same time, the headquarters of the 13-nation group in Kiel condemned the Austro-Hungarian Empire's war against civilians as unacceptable. The Latin American 13-nation group condemned the Austro-Hungarian Empire's abominable behavior. The organization said that if the Austro-Hungarian Empire found that the German Empire's army posed a threat to Mexico, then the organization would respond to the German Empire in terms of military technology and in accordance with a security treaty signed by the member states of the organization. The 13-nation group held its first summit after the expansion of its member states in Kiel, Ecuador at the prime ministerial level before the end of September. The organization expressed dissatisfaction with the Austro-Hungarian Empire's attack on the member states of the organization and would respond strongly to it to safeguard the interests of the member states. Other member states will begin to converge in Kiel within a week and then form a humanitarian team. They will respond to the front line on the Mexican side to observe the situation of the massacred villages in Mexico. If it is finally found to be true, then the 13-nation group will impose the strongest sanctions on the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it is not ruled out that the 13-nation group will sever diplomatic relations with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. If this is really the case, then the Austro-Hungarian Empire will shrink sharply in the global diplomatic map, and even become more dependent on Berlin, becoming a veritable German little brother. They are worried about the impact of this sudden war on the security of their respective countries, especially the interference of food and investment environment in addition to the security of various countries. After all, since the war, the scarcity of food in Mexico will be fierce, and the food in other countries will become the prey of Mexican businessmen. This is a very important matter for all countries. Ecuadorian President Moreno also said, Austria-Hungary launched a provocative war against Mexico, which is to convey a message to the members of the Group of 13, Austria-Hungary needs more wars, not peace. In terms of the Austro-Mexican War of the Exhibitors, Mexican President González reiterated after meeting with the presidents of the 5 Central American countries who visited on September 16, 1881 that only when Austria-Hungary completely leaves the territory including the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, can Mexico start peace talks with Austria-Hungary. The Dutch diplomatic mission to the Group of 13 stated that consultations and assessments between allies are still continuing, and it is wrong to comment on the confidential plan of the Group of 13 at this time. The Dutch delegation is obviously unwilling to express its position so quickly and leak secrets. Mexican President González reiterated his position of demanding the withdrawal of Austria-Hungary at a joint press conference. On September 18, 1881, Stephen Douglas of the United States called on Austria and Mexico to ease the conflict. Obviously, the United States was leaning towards Austria-Hungary, because after all, Mexico was occupied. How could it ease the conflict? Would Mexico be willing to suffer a loss and swallow the bitter fruit? Therefore, when the United States supported easing relations, the relationship between the United States and Mexico began to deteriorate sharply. The Mexican Ministry of Foreign Affairs even publicly stated that the United States was no longer a close partner of Mexico. We removed it from our partner countries because it was not worthy. In the United States, the Republican Party fully criticized the poor diplomatic line of the Democratic Party government. The Republican Party publicly stated that if it successfully removed the Democratic Party from power, it would sign an alliance treaty with Mexico, and the Republican Party would submit an application to the Latin American 13 Alliance to join the alliance when it was appropriate. The top leaders of the Republican Party criticized the Democratic Party for making the United States an orphan in America. If it is not handled well, the United States will face a huge strategic disaster. The internal debate in the United States over the Austrian-Mexican dispute has allowed the world to see the fierce battle between the two parties of the United States Federation, and also allowed people to see the plasticity of the party politics of the United States Federation. German Empire, Berlin. Bismarck said seriously, the current defense plan of the Latin American 13 Alliance marks a fundamental change in the organization. In the past 10 years, the 7 Alliance, the predecessor of the 13 Group, only participated in the Chilean Civil War and fought against Britain, and the Chilean War of the participating countries was a relatively small-scale war. It was believed that Argentina was pro-British at the time, so a large number of defense troops were deployed on the Argentine border. However, the Argentine army did not pose much threat, so there was no need to formulate a large-scale defense plan. However, not long ago in May, the German-Austrian alliance formulated the Latin American plan, and now the Austro-Hungarian Empire has expanded the war and occupied more territory in Mexico. The situation has changed drastically. It's okay. The three countries are now warning that due to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Vienna and other opponents, a larger-scale conflict may break out at any time, so all preparations must be made to guide member countries on how to strengthen their troops and logistics. Chief of the General Staff Moltke asked, the Dutch 13 Group has begun to exert its strength. Is it time for us to take action? Chapter 977, The Ignored Austro-Hungarian Empire. William I. Why do you think so? German Chancellor Bismarck, President González of Mexico demanded that Austria-Hungary withdraw from the Yucatan Peninsula, which had been occupied by Austria-Hungary for more than a decade, before peace talks could be started. Knowing that Austria-Hungary had the upper hand and after the War of Expansion, Mexico still dared to challenge Austria-Hungary. Either this person is insane, or he has a very powerful backer. As the president of a country, I believe he is the latter. Chief of the General Staff Moltke, I heard that when reporters asked about the rumors that the Austro-Hungarian Empire was currently shooting and killing civilians, González humorously said in Mexico City that he believed that Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria was an upright and kind monarch. Although everything that is happening in the Austro-Hungarian Empire is true, he would rather believe that Franz Joseph I could not control his army, or that he was temporarily irrational. I agree with the Prime Minister that Mexico's support for anti-British is a bit weird. I suggest that if our German Empire intervenes rashly, it may not be worth the loss. William I's face changed slightly. He knew that it might be disadvantageous to Germany if he got involved. However, if he didn't do this, the relationship between his German royal family and the Austro-Hungarian royal family might become worse, even worse than before. If Germany and Austria fell out, the countries that would benefit would be the neighboring countries. Tsarist Russia, France, and Britain? Thinking of this, he thought of Paris, which had been suppressed by Berlin for more than 10 years. If Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire fell out, would Paris unite with Austria-Hungary to test Berlin and let Paris unify the whole of France? And after the unification, would France become Germany's biggest and most direct enemy as before? However, if there is a full-scale confrontation with Austria-Hungary in Latin America and the Latin American 13 group, Germany will become the target of close attention in the Americas. Germany's global status may face suppression by the Netherlands and its allies. Germany can't seem to afford to offend both sides. Thinking of this, William I smiled bitterly at Bismarck. Perhaps, from the beginning, the Netherlands began to prepare problems for us. Bismarck shook his head. Your Majesty, in fact, you have forgotten a powerful country that has always been relatively low-key. William I was stunned, and then after thinking for a while, he said, "Are you talking about Britain?" Yes, Britain's balanced diplomacy always comes so abruptly. This time, Britain fully supports the German-Austrian alliance to advance into Latin America. We are all convinced, making us believe that the Netherlands does not want to offend our German-Austrian alliance when wrestling with Britain. If everything is like this, then we can really easily do what we want. By then, maybe Britain also hopes to see us become the third pole, the weakest pole of the third level between Britain, the Netherlands, Germany and Austria, but the Netherlands wanted to operate behind the scenes from the beginning, making it difficult for Britain to legitimately win over Germany. Now the Netherlands is hiding behind the scenes, indirectly contributing, and so far, it seems to be very effective. Bismarck said solemnly, the Netherlands is working in secret, but the effect is better. We really need to be more cautious. He looked up at William I and said, Your Majesty, let's ask for help from Austria-Hungary first, and then make new plans after seeing the situation. William I nodded depressedly. On September 19, 1881, the 13 Group published a document of thousands of pages of overall defense plan, which detailed how to deal with attacks from Austria-Hungary and other countries. Martinez, Dutch, the Secretary General of the group, said that day that the deputy ministerial level senior military officials of various countries reviewed the defense plan at a meeting in Kiel, Ecuador, and were close to reaching an agreement. And what shocked all countries the most was that this meeting unanimously passed a draft, which stated that all countries had the obligation to provide weapons support to Mexico. When facing the life and death of Mexico, the 12 member states unanimously agreed that at the request of Mexico and with the unanimous approval of the other 12 countries, the 12 countries would send troops to support Mexico in resisting invasion and driving the invaders out of Mexican territory. The passage of this draft immediately triggered protests from Austria-Hungary. But in the face of it, the 12 countries all stated that this was the obligation and responsibility of being a member of the 13 alliance, and they all publicly called on Austria-Hungary to immediately leave Mexican territory, including the Yucatan Peninsula. Franz Joseph I of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was also at the International Economic Forum in Vienna that day. Regarding the attitudes of various countries towards the draft resolution adopted by the 13-nation group, Franz Joseph I expressed that he could not accept the request to leave the Yucatan Peninsula. The Austrian Emperor directly stated that the Austro-Hungarian Empire had sent very serious diplomatic notes and protests to all member states of the 13-nation group, except Mexico. The Austrian Emperor also stated that the Austro-Hungarian Empire had asked the German Empire in Berlin for support from the Allies, and believed that with the joint efforts of the German-Austrian alliance, the conflict between Mexico and Austria-Hungary would be resolved soon. In response, the 13-nation group directly ignored the warnings and protests of the Austrian Emperor in Vienna. On September 21, 1881, Martinez, the Secretary General of the 13-nation group, directly announced in Kiel that the group would launch the largest-scale show in history to demonstrate the organization's powerful military strength. The senior Dutch official told the global newspaper European Times directly, although today is not the official approval of all projects in the 13-nation joint defense plan, we predict that these plans will all be passed before the end of this month, because Mexico has been bullied by Austria-Hungary, which is very infuriating for our allies, and all countries are inclined to pass the policies we have formulated. Deputy defense ministers of the Latin American 13-member countries began a week-long meeting in Kiel on September 19, 1881 to review the first overall defense plan of the organization with the most alliances of countries in the world. It was originally difficult to reach a consensus, because many people suspected that this was a way for the Netherlands, a big country in the organization, to expand its influence in various countries, and therefore they were resistant in their hearts, especially Mexico and Colombia, which have always regarded themselves as regional powers. However, as Mexico was launched into war by Austria-Hungary, Other countries could not help but weigh their own weight. The Austro-Hungarian Empire launched a war, and the organization took the opportunity to expand its influence, and then actually let the Netherlands firmly grasp part of the military power of various countries. This was difficult for the Netherlands to do in the past. William IV and Prime Minister Linden's many plans actually took this profit into account. As for this time, relying on the German-Austrian alliance to pressure these small countries to fully approach the Netherlands, it really succeeded. Chapter 978 Report of the Dutch Parliamentary Defense Committee. 1881. Just as the Austro-Hungarian Empire was preparing to expand its territory in southeastern Mexico, occupying the town of Latam and then moving towards the port of Colchis, the Latin American 13 Group openly announced that it would support Mexico in arming it. If Mexico asked for help or Germany and other countries intervened, the other members of the 13 Group would not hesitate to send troops to join the war to support Mexico in driving out the invaders. The public attitude of the 13 International Group shocked Europe. Even the top leaders of the German Empire in Berlin did not expect such an effect. It was originally thought that Mexico would be slowly eroded in the end, and the German Empire's planned strategy in South America was also hindered. So much so that Germany chose to keep its troops in place for more than a week. This made Austria-Hungary, which had already publicly expressed its request for help, very angry. On September 22, 1881, the Kingdom of the Netherlands belatedly expressed its position. Both the upper and lower houses of the Dutch Parliament passed the common content, and the two houses issued a security report. The possibility of invasion by Germany and Austria cannot be ruled out. The report said that the Austro-Hungarian Empire's invasion of Latin America and Mexico further lowered the threshold for the use of military force, and was able to accept great political and military risks. The report of the Dutch Parliament pointed out that the beginning of the transatlantic invasion and counter-invasion war between Austria and Mexico opened a door for the possibility of escalating aggression against other countries and using various means to create excuses. Austria and Mexico finally became a realistic model for other countries to go to war. The report pointed out that the Netherlands, like most countries, has not really fought with other countries since the Vienna Conference at the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815. Many of the Netherlands' allies have only increased in recent years. The military expenditure and military capabilities of many of the Netherlands' allies are not enough to fight against the European military powers. For example, the Netherlands' ally Mexico is now fighting against the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The report said that in the past 10 years, Mexico has purchased 50,000 Mauser rifles and supporting ammunition from the Netherlands, as well as 20,000 semi-automatic rifles, 50 front-rifled cannons, and 20 rear-rifled cannons. The rest are old British and American old-fashioned guns. The Mexican army has 100,000 troops, and almost everyone is just equipped with a gun. On the contrary, the Austrian Empire of the Austro-Hungarian Empire has been a European power for hundreds of years, and now the United Kingdom of Hungary forms the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The foundation of a great power for hundreds of years is definitely not comparable to Mexico, a former Spanish colony that has only established a republic for more than 60 years, not to mention that Mexico's economic and industrial level is difficult to compare with the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Europe. The report pointed out that the Netherlands needs to make a response plan. For example, relying on the Netherlands' strong military manufacturing capabilities and a complete Dutch local supply chain, the Netherlands is able to provide allies with sufficient self-defense weapon systems. The Dutch Congressional Report recommends that the Dutch government should speed up the promotion of Dutch weapon sales when cooperating with allies, so as to provide the Netherlands with weapons to supply allies to increase their security, while increasing the development of the Dutch military industry and providing companies with sufficient income to develop new weapons. The report also criticized the views of many Dutch military experts. The Austro-Hungarian Empire dispatched a large number of land troops and surface warships to attack Mexico, making it difficult for the latter to hold its position, which seriously exposed the coastal defense gap of the Netherlands' Latin American allies. Due to the lack of naval warship systems and coastal defense artillery, Mexico is currently unable to respond to the counterattack of the Austro-Hungarian invasion on the coastal waters. The Dutch Parliamentary Defense Committee, which is composed of a large number of bipartisan MPs, issued a report on Monday, September 22, stating that the Austro-Mexico War could escalate into an attack on other countries, and that the invasion of the Austro-Hungarian Empire might cause other major powers to follow suit, making small countries feel insecure. Therefore, the Netherlands must design its own security policy and adjust its defense measures based on the threat posed by the Austro-Hungarian Empire for a long time in the future. The Netherlands needs to consult with its allies on how to respond and protect itself in the event of a similar invasion by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Krim, director and chief researcher of the Netherlands-Australia Institute, said at the meeting that in the past week, many countries around the world have sent telegrams to ask if there are ready-made purchase transactions in the business of the three major Dutch arms dealers. Obviously, the Austro-Hungarian Empire's invasion of Mexico has caused panic among small countries. Everyone wants to buy more weapons, so that the evildoers dare not act rashly. He pointed out that in the next 10 years, Dutch arms dealers will become guests of honor of governments of various countries. Everyone wants to obtain the world's most advanced and profitable weapons to protect themselves from harm, so they have become the focus. The Dutch Parliamentary Defense Committee, which was assisted by security experts, also reported that Austria-Hungary had lowered the threshold for mobilizing military forces, and was able to destroy the balance of power previously created by the world's powers, increasing the risk of occupation between the powers. Moreover, the Austro-Hungarian Empire's transatlantic war showed that it had the ability to attack Mexico through the navy and army and long-distance crossing the sea. Previously, only a few countries in the world had such an approach. Currently, only the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, France, and Spain are on this list, and Germany is barely one of them. Austria-Hungary's approach showed that its overseas mobilization capabilities were not inferior to Germany's. It showed that Austria-Hungary was stronger than the landlubber of the Russian Empire overseas. The Austro-Hungarian Empire's approach affected the interests of the world's powerful and weak countries. Different countries have different positions and represent different interests. Klim, director and chief researcher of the Netherlands-Australia Institute, said in an interview with the European Times, "You will see a lot of discussions about the capabilities of naval warships and submarines. The improvement of ocean combat power has undoubtedly become a major military market. Because of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, I estimate that in the future, the Russian Empire, the United States, Italy and other countries that have not paid much attention to maritime power in the past will accelerate the construction of maritime power. It is possible that the manufacturers of maritime power will have a hot business with supply exceeding demand." The arms and policy experts said that the Netherlands must speed up the delivery of weapons to its allies, because only in this way can the allies improve their capabilities and the Netherlands can start military cooperation with them. Otherwise, the weapons of the allies are not good. When the Netherlands wants to help the other party will not use the Dutch weapons, and then everything will be too late. After the Austro-Hungarian Empire attacked Mexico, it shocked the world. Many of the Netherlands' allies immediately strengthened their defense capabilities and accelerated the purchase of weapons from the Netherlands, but many countries are still waiting and watching. For example, Venezuela and Colombia, the Netherlands' allies, are struggling to buy weapons from the Netherlands due to the lack of finances in these two countries. Currently, these two countries are applying to the Netherlands for a credit-type arms purchase treaty. During the negotiations, both sides are working on mortgage conditions. The Netherlands hopes to obtain the right to use the ports of these countries, but these two countries are unwilling to do so. Instead, they hope to sell some islands, trying to tie the Netherlands to the maritime border of the two countries and make the Netherlands a neighbor. That would be a good idea. Will the Netherlands refuse? Chapter 979 Recommendations of the Netherlands Royal Safety Commission. Before the Austro-Hungarian Empire invaded Mexico, Mexico was actually the country that was most disgusted with the Netherlands' increased efforts to sell weapons to Latin American countries and completely dominated the Latin American 13 group. Although Mexico joined the group, many people were prepared to monitor the Netherlands' power structure in the group and hollow out the power of Latin American independence and transfer it to the Netherlands. Mexico is actually the same as the United States of America, but due to limited strength, it can only influence the 5 Central American countries. Therefore, as the 5 Central American countries reconciled with Colombia, they showed their willingness to no longer challenge Panama's territory as Colombia's territory in exchange for Colombia's support for the 5 countries to join the Group of 7, which made Mexico panic. As a result, Mexico used to use these 5 countries as a buffer to conflict with the group, but it suddenly disappeared. Whether it is to avoid being isolated or to integrate into the organization and then type in internal monitoring of the Netherlands in Colombia, Mexico's best choice is to join the group. So today in May, Mexico and the 5 Central American countries became new members of the 7 Alliance, and the group also became the Group of 13. The saddest thing about Mexico is that it has become the first target country to be invaded by foreign enemies. Many Mexicans are secretly glad that if they had not joined 3 months ago, the 12 countries would not have stood on the side of Mexico without hesitation at this time. Even other neighboring countries have added insult to injury, such as Colombia, which is competing with Mexico for influence in Central America. This time, Colombia did not obstruct the group's entire support for Mexico, which really made Mexicans feel good about Colombians. Since Mexico is an ally of the Netherlands, many people in the Netherlands are discussing the war between Austria-Hungary and Mexico every day. Where there is a market, there is supply and demand. Dutch political commentators and experts have also begun to comment on this war and have joined this national news hotspot. Many people said that Austria-Hungary's tools against Mexico exposed the huge gap in America's defense on land and sea when facing European powers. Many experts pointed out that the need for American countries to fill the gap in coastal defense capabilities and land capabilities is not only difficult and time-consuming, but also costly. Brown, a well-known political commentator, chief researcher and director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, pointed out that after the Austro-Hungarian and Mexican wars began, Colombia had allocated 25 million Dutch guilders, £1 million, to rebuild the country's naval defense forces in the next year, of which £360,000 were planned to be used to introduce 3 second-generation submarines from the Netherlands and £200,000 to build a submarine docking base. £440,000 were all used to purchase semi-automatic rifles for the army, but the price of a Dutch semi-automatic rifle is £50 with ammunition, which means that only 8,800 rifles can be purchased, which is still a drop in the bucket for Colombia's 80,000 troops. Brown also pointed out that Venezuela's economy is similar to Colombia's. After 70 years of peaceful development after independence, both countries are fast-growing countries, almost catching up with the Russian Empire in Europe. Venezuela plans to invest a new defense budget next year that is comparable to Colombia's. Can Nancy, a senior consultant at the Netherlands Center for Strategic and International Studies, said that in recent years, more and more rifle guns, semi-automatic rifles and steam battleships have been obtained in Europe. If the other G13 member states, except the Netherlands, do not want to be bullied by European powers, then these member states need to refocus on the defense capabilities of these countries. Brown pointed out that the Dutch government should host the world's first defense technology and weapons exhibition that only allies can participate in, provide weapons displays to the Netherlands' global allies, and open up the right to purchase more and more advanced weapons to these countries, and require ministers from various countries to attend the meeting held by the Netherlands Ministry of Defense in conjunction with the 3 major arms dealers, so as to resolve the current mess in the G13 weapons procurement. Brown is also an advisor to the Defense Committee of the Dutch Parliament. He warned at the meeting that the possibility of the Austro-Hungarian Empire launching an attack on other member states could not be ruled out. He directly pointed out that the Austro-Hungarian Empire's neighboring Guatemala and Belize in the southern part of the Yucatan Peninsula are the most dangerous countries. Venezuela's ambassador to Melbourne, the Netherlands, agrees with Brown's words. Colombia has proposed an industrial agreement, and now Venezuela has also proposed a strategic move, that is, the G13 has the ability to be independent and have equipment that can compete with European powers, and the Netherlands is our G13 weapons logistics country. He said, they started purchasing, but basically didn't go far. In another 3 years, I think there will be more Dutch equipment bureaus arriving in Latin American countries, but for now, it can't help Mexico fully arm itself against the Austro-Hungarian Empire. According to a Dutch government insider, the Dutch Parliament's report lists the Netherlands' new defense guidelines as being based on helping the Latin American G13 alliance, rather than mainly helping other regional allies of the Netherlands such as Denmark, Sweden, Greece, and the Kingdom of Siam. The Royal Netherlands Security Council also issued a report, pointing out that this plan led by countries such as Venezuela and Colombia chose Dutch technology instead of technology from other countries, which is consistent with the goal of strengthening the Dutch industrial and defense technology base. The Royal Netherlands Security Council suggested that with full consideration of the Netherlands' security interests and technical confidentiality, partners can be persuaded to cooperate in all aspects at the strategic, military, industrial, and economic levels. The Royal Security Committee was the think tank of King William IV of the Netherlands. Its attitude represented that the Netherlands had quietly entered the war between Austro-Hungary and Mexico in Latin America. The attitude of the Netherlands brought other countries to follow suit. On September 27, 1881, the Panama region of Colombia directly launched an art installation, and many Mexican flags were raised outside the Panama Exhibition Hall, symbolizing that the war crimes committed by the Austro-Hungarian Empire were magnified there for people to see. After the Austro-Hungarian Empire invaded Mexico, the German Empire supported the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Many nobles in Berlin even publicly stated that the German-Austrian alliance expanded its interests in Latin America, which made Americans even more dissatisfied. Helka, a policy researcher in Colombia at the Council on Foreign Relations of the 13 Alliance, said, "Germany's acquiescence to the Mexican War is a road of no return. There is no evidence that Germany is actively providing weapons and military aid to the invader Austro-Hungarian Empire, but people in the member states of the 13 Alliance saw that the German Empire continued to send such signals. Of course, Vienna kept promoting it, which embarrassed Germany, but Vienna was emboldened by it and was not alone. Today, the Mexican flag can be seen in other countries such as other G13 members, and even in Mexico's old enemies Colombia and Panama." A Guatemalan official said, "Germany is important, but for us, the war in which Mexico was invaded by Austria-Hungary was the main challenge, because we are neighbors and allies, and everything else must be viewed from this perspective, including the good relations with Germany in the past." Chapter 980, The Netherlands enters. The Austro-Hungarian Empire launched a war against Mexico, which made its old enemy Colombia feel threatened. The ambitions of the Austro-German alliance in Latin America also aroused the disgust of the people in many American countries. The Australian Times reported that a poll conducted by the American Governance Project of the Netherlands National Peace Foundation in the fall of 1881 showed that only 7.1% of Colombians and 9% of Venezuelans had a positive view of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Only 26% of Colombians and 21% of Venezuelans had a positive view of the German Empire. Gretz, a Colombia and Venezuela analyst at the Netherlands National Peace Foundation's American Governance Project, said, "From a bilateral perspective, Austria-Hungary and Germany do not pose a real direct threat to Venezuela and Colombia. The challenge lies in how the German-Austrian alliance can reshape international norms and international systems that ensure the security and interests of Colombia and Venezuela, and the impact of this on Colombia and Venezuela as a member of the Dutch Allies in terms of politics and economy, and as a member of the Dutch Allies in terms of security." However, Colombia and Venezuela have no intention of following the example of Guatemala and Belize, which have announced the closure of the border with the Mexican-occupied area due to the proximity to Mexico and the Austro-Hungarian occupied area, and have declared Austria-Hungary as unwelcome in these two countries, preventing Austro-Hungarians from entering their borders. It is clear that the two countries have completely fallen out with Austria-Hungary. Colombia and Venezuela are located in the southern Caribbean Sea, and their land area and influence are larger than the 5 Central American countries, so these two countries regard themselves as middle powers that can act as spokespersons for the regional alliance when dealing with Germany and Austria. It is reported that Colombia and Venezuela have received fewer and fewer telegrams and diplomatic contacts from the Austro-German alliance. At the same time, the two countries have moved closer to the Netherlands and are increasingly openly supporting foreign policy goals against Britain, and increasing the Netherlands' military and economic influence in the country. The Austro-Mexican War has boosted many small and medium-sized Latin American countries, especially the members of the G13 alliance. Their security must rely on the Netherlands to ensure that they are not threatened. The Austro-Hungarian and Mexican wars have lasted for almost 2 weeks. The establishment of the Austro-German alliance has made even the Mexican presidential palace, which is not so hawkish against the German Empire, tired of the German Empire's position. A senior Mexican official said that Germany's previous close contacts with Mexico now seem to have become meaningless to Mexico. Many Mexicans pointed out that the relationship between Mexico and Germany accelerated in the 1970s, and even became Germany's second security strategic partner in the Americas after the United States of America. The two countries were even prepared to form an alliance to deal with the threat of Britain in the Confederate States of America, the independent part of the southern United States, north of Mexico, and the threat of the expansion of the influence of the Netherlands in southern Colombia and Venezuela. However, they did not expect that just after Germany formed an alliance with Austria-Hungary, Austria-Hungary launched an aggressive war against itself. Germany and Mexico negotiated many times, but Germany always refused to agree to Mexico's persuasion of Austria-Hungary, but instead used various excuses to prevaricate itself. As a result, in 2 weeks, the relationship between Mexico and Germany gradually deteriorated. As one of the founding members of the German Empire Central America Strategic Cooperation Framework, Mexico, like other countries in the region, was dissatisfied and tired of Germany's approach. The war launched by Austria-Hungary against Mexico changed the geopolitical situation in Latin America. The close relationship between Germany and Austria-Hungary also further deteriorated Berlin's image in Latin America. The European Times reported that Latin American countries are adjusting their policies toward Germany and strengthening cooperation with the Netherlands. Of course, only 26% of people in Colombia and 21% in Venezuela have a positive view of the German Empire, mainly because they believe that the German Empire will play a role in the peace negotiations to end the Austro-Mexican War. Therefore, these make you think that the two countries need to maintain good relations with Berlin. They believe that their countries should have a seat at the negotiating table. Some people believe that Germany may sit next to the invader Austro-Hungarian Empire at that time, or even replace Austro-Hungarian Empire to directly participate in the negotiations. In short, the image of the Austro-Hungarian Empire has collapsed, and Germany is also seriously deteriorating. If the loss is not stopped, Germany will be completely bound to the identity of the Austro-Hungarian ally. On September 29, 1881, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Dutch government stated in a statement that Foreign Minister Joseph Beit met with 19 ambassadors to the Netherlands from Sweden, Denmark, Greece, Spain, the Russian Empire, the Qing dynasty, the Kingdom of Hungary, and the other 12 countries of the Latin American 13 Alliance in Melbourne to introduce them to the Dutch view on the Austro-Hungarian war against Mexico. The Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, "We, the Netherlands and our allies around the world, have noted the threat posed by the Austro-Hungarian invasion of Mexico and the Austro-German alliance, so our 19 countries will closely coordinate on this issue and reaffirm that the Netherlands and its allies are more united than ever before." Joseph Beit visited Vienna in June, and did not expect that the Austro-Hungarian Empire would go to war with Mexico in the blink of an eye. Meeting with representatives of 19 countries on Wednesday, September 29, Beit emphasized a close cooperation in dealing with the Austro-Hungarian and Mexican issues, and called on all countries to be more united in order to deal with future threats and challenges. At the meeting, Foreign Minister Beit announced that the Netherlands will provide weapons support to Mexico from next week in response to the results of the collective representative meeting of the 13 Latin American countries. It has been confirmed that the Netherlands will provide Mexico with 20,000 rifles and 5,000 semi-automatic rifles plus ammunition every month at a 50% discount. This news from the Netherlands was immediately spread, which immediately caused serious dissatisfaction from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Franz Joseph I criticized directly in Vienna, "We have no intention of targeting the Netherlands. We have been friends with the Netherlands for generations. The Netherlands is now providing weapons to the enemies of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Is this a signal of hostility to the 30 million Austro-Hungarians? If so, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will not show any cowardice and will face the enemy directly." The toughness of Austria-Hungary surprised people. At the same time, it also gave people more recognition of the possible escalation of the Austro-Mexico War mentioned by many experts a few days ago. If Austria-Hungary and the Netherlands really started a war, then a war between the great powers would come, and it would be difficult for the Austro-Hungarian Empire to win the war. But would Germany, the other party of the German-Austrian alliance, stand idly by? Germany has always liked to plan before taking action. It is impossible for Germany to retreat with the entry of the Netherlands. Therefore, many countries opened their eyes and waited for the good show to begin, especially Britain. Chapter 981, Mexico's Great Counterattack. The open support of the Netherlands for weapons made the Austro-Hungarian Empire angry, and the Austro-Hungarian Ministry of Foreign Affairs directly summoned the Dutch ambassador to Vienna to express Vienna's dissatisfaction. However, the Netherlands claimed that it was only for the treaty restrictions of the Allies, and it was not forced to do so. It was just to safeguard the interests of the Netherlands. The relationship between the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Netherlands was like this, becoming the worst period in history. Mexico received public support from the Netherlands and seemed to have gained a source of strength on the front line. On October 1, 1881, Mexican Foreign Minister Maria held a press conference. The Mexican army counter-advanced 9 kilometers to the Austro-Hungarian defense line. In the offensive operation between the inspection of Colchis and La Muda, Mexico took back 10 kilometers and 9 villages were recaptured by us. He also said that Mexico received weapon supplies from its allies and began to counterattack the other side. The Mexican army encountered stubborn resistance in the west of La Muda, especially near the town of La Muda. The Austro-Hungarian Empire currently has more than 10,000 troops deployed in the town of La Muda, and has increased the number of artillery bombardments. Mexican President González praised the Mexican army for repelling the enemy's offensive in a national broadcast on the afternoon of the 10th and 1st, and said that the counterattack was progressing smoothly. Our troops are advancing, from one position to another, step by step, we are moving forward. The Mexican military said that the Austro-Hungarian army suffered much greater losses than Mexico this time. It is reported that Mexico destroyed an Austro-Hungarian ammunition depot in the Austro-Hungarian occupied town of La Muda. In addition, a reservoir in the Austro-Hungarian occupied area was blown up on September 30th. Although the water level was not high, a large amount of Austro-Hungarian military supplies were washed away, causing tension in the Austro-Hungarian army's supply line. The Austro-Hungarian Ministry of Defense responded that Mexico's actions may lead to the same means of Austro-Hungarian Empire landing in the country's ruling area in the future. The Austro-Hungarian Empire reported that fierce fighting occurred in 2 areas on the Mexican front. The Austro-Hungarian Ministry of Defense said that the Mexican army had been counterattacking the village defense line 15 kilometers west of Latamu over the past day, with the most intense offensive in the coastal area, but the offensive in 3 local villages was repelled by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Netherlands Military Observation Organization War Research Institute published an analysis report on the same day, saying that the Mexican army may regain some territory from the Austro-Hungarian Empire before the end of this week, October 5, 1881. The report said, starting on October 4, the Mexican army counterattacked at least 4 villages on the front line after receiving more military assistance from 13 Latin American countries, and may have regained more territory. In the recaptured villages, the original residents of the suburbs of Latamu held up the national flag and said that they were preparing to recapture more homes. Their goal was to prepare to recapture at least 8 southeastern villages this weekend. Mexican President González said that since the counterattack, a total of 8 villages have been recaptured last week, including a village south of Latamu, and a total of 190 square kilometers of territory have been recovered. Mexico's consecutive victories have made people see that the Austro-Hungarian Empire seems to have weakened. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was naturally dissatisfied with this. In order to avenge its defeat, the Austro-Hungarian Empire would naturally not wait for the Mexican army to attack in the town of La Muda. The Austro-Hungarian Empire began to formulate one combat plan after another against Mexico, and even in Vienna, there are currently more than 7 combat plans. The latest plan was formulated by General Cornell, the Austro-Hungarian Chief of Staff in Latin America, namely Plan No. 3. The core of the plan is that the Austro-Hungarian Empire will gather on the fortified Austro-Hungarian-Mexican border. Therefore, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will launch an active and proactive offensive here and recover the total of 8 villages lost in the war just over a week ago, and even get more Mexican territory. On October 8, 1881, the right-wing army of the Austro-Hungarian Empire along the coast began to attack the villages on the actual ruling line of Mexico, and was stubbornly resisted by the Mexican army. After being blocked for 2 days, the 8 villages were occupied on October 10. This time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire continued to lead 10,000 troops to inspect the port of Colchis. When the news of Mexico's defeat and retreat reached the country, the people were shocked and panicked. The González government urgently mobilized the garrison in Tuxtepec to the east to support the investigation of the port of Colchis. However, due to the distance of more than 100 kilometers, distant water could not save the nearby fire. The Austro-Hungarian Empire seized this point. The Second Austrian Army, which had been deployed long ago, implemented Plan No. 5 to launch an attack on Mina de Tlan, not far from the left wing of the investigation of Colchis. However, the initial battles showed that Plan No. 5 was very bad. The Austro-Hungarian army attacked the 3,000 Mexican garrisons in Mina de Tlan, but because the city was well defended and its geographical location was high in the west and low in the east, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. As a result, The 10,000 left-wing troops of the 30,000 troops in Mexico lost 1,500 people and still failed to capture the city. Nearly 1,000 of the remaining 8,500 people were also injured. Finally, they had no choice but to turn northeast and attack Cucuchas 20 kilometers. The 5,000 Mexican troops there lost 2,200 people under the attack of the 185 million Austrian troops. The remaining 28 million Mexican troops fled north to the town of Tlacotolbo. The town has the same strategic location as Latam, but the town has a small port. The Austrian army also lost 3,000 people. The maritime transportation is convenient, but because of this, the Austro-Hungarian army may be a greater threat at sea. In the defensive Battle of Cucuchas, the Mexican army was beaten badly, but the Austro-Hungarian army on the left also suffered a lot in Minatitlan. After the Austro-Hungarian army occupied Cucuchas, 5,500 troops of the 155 million troops stayed in the city, and the remaining 100 million troops went south to attack Minatitlan. Like a waving sickle, 10,000 troops slanted into Minatitlan from the north of Cucuchas. On October 13, the two sides fought fiercely in the city, and both sides suffered losses. The Mexican defenders of 3,000 people were reduced to 2,500 after the previous war. Now they were facing the attack of 10,000 Austrian troops. The 4 times the attack strength made them exhausted. After the opponent paid 2,000 lives, the Mexican army lost more than half, and 1,200 people had to abandon the city of Minatitlan and flee southwest to Jesus Carranza. The 8,000 Austrian troops left 3,000 people to defend the newly captured Minatitlan, and the remaining 5,000 people followed the Mexican army southward. When the Austrian army advanced 15 kilometers away from Jesus Carranza, it was ambushed by 5,000 Mexican troops ambushed there, and the Mexican army lost 300 people. Finally, after the Austrian army lost 800 people, 4,200 people returned to Minatitlan in the north. A small war ended in less than a week, but both sides lost a lot of troops. In this war, 20,000 Austrian troops attacked 8,000 Mexican defenders. Mexico lost 4,300 people. The Austrian army lost 7,300 people. This is the most brutal war in the past 10 years, even bigger than the Chilean Civil War in 1878. The expansion of this war will lead to an escalation of the war. Needless to say, neither Mexico nor Austria-Hungary will give up. Chapter 982. 24 years of Dutch development. Many people believe that Alexander II was killed by internal rebels. In fact, those who know the situation believe that this was an assassination plotted by Berlin. In short, Alexander II was assassinated in St. Petersburg, which completely deteriorated the relationship between Germany and Russia after Alexander II came to power. This is why the Russian Empire has been showing goodwill to the Netherlands recently. It is to use the Netherlands to expand its circle of friends around the world. Alexander II is the nephew of Queen Mother Anna, the grandmother of William IV. Regardless of personal feelings or national interests, William IV hopes that Alexander II will live a long life. Alexander II is a good person, at least a firm ally of the Netherlands. The Russian government under his leadership has adhered to its credibility in many treaties signed with the Netherlands. To be honest, the reforms to abolish serfdom that Alexander II began to implement in the 1860s have expanded the sales and market of Dutch industrial products in the Russian Empire. Therefore, many Dutch consortium industrial interests hope to see Alexander II's reforms continue. The Netherlands and the Russian Empire did not really border each other. Allies without threats were the best allies that could last. William IV could not help but think of the European history he had learned before. He found that he should have struggled for survival when he traveled through the Netherlands, but he traveled to the good times of the late 1850s. The Russian Empire licked its wounds because of the failure of the Crimean War. The friendship of the Netherlands made the Russian Empire cherish it. At that time, Viscount Palmerston was old, and Bismarck was still an ambassador to France. He was still 5 or 6 years away from becoming the Prime Minister of Prussia, and 15 years away from becoming the Prime Minister of Germany. At this time, who dared to say that the Netherlands could not rise? You must know that at this time, the civil war between the United States and the United Kingdom in 1861 had not yet occurred. The Netherlands also took advantage of this wave to attract many Dutch people to return home and fill the gaps in the population of the Netherlands. It was at this time that the Netherlands was able to take the opportunity to become the fastest rising country in the world. From 1857 to 1881, William IV grew from 17 to 41 years old. With the efforts of more than one generation, the Netherlands has become the world's leading power, even forcing Britain to look at it with equal eyes. With the support of William IV's golden finger, can't such an achievement be achieved in 24 years? William IV feels funny when he thinks about it. In his previous life, the southern special zone of his motherland only took 30 years to become the world's top city by feeling his way across the river. William IV holds the golden finger, and there are poor countries everywhere in this world. They absorb their resources and population for their own use. Especially now, the so-called advanced countries in Europe are far from paying enough attention to talents. The talents they cultivate have become the Netherlands' pockets without knowing it. It would be strange if such a Netherlands did not rise. So those who question the rapid development of the Netherlands' comprehensive strength can look at history. Look at how post-war Japan became the second largest economy in 1860, how the Four Dragons became powerful manufacturing economies in the 1980s, and how Germany became the third largest economy in the 1970s on a ruin after World War II. These are all living examples. The population disadvantage of the Netherlands is that the Boers in South Africa had nearly 500,000 Dutch people in 1863. After the Anglo-Boer War, these people migrated to the Australian continent of the Netherlands. In a generation, the government encouraged people to have more children. With 4 or 5 children in a family and the best medical conditions in Europe, the survival rate was the highest. It is normal to double the population by 2.5 times in 18 years, which is 1.25 million descendants of Boer Dutch. During the Civil War between the United States and the United States, more than 1 million people immigrated to the far east of the Netherlands. It is reasonable for these people to be divided by 2.5 times to nearly 2.5 million in 20 years. The Netherlands had nearly 7 million people at that time, and it was normal for the population to double by 2.5 times to 17.5 million. These add up to 21.25 million Dutch people. Add to that the immigrants and their descendants from Europe and America, nearly 8 million people, and now there are 29.25 million white people in the Netherlands. The Far East natives plus the nearly 10 million black labor immigrants from Africa, the population of the Netherlands in Europe and the Far East has reached nearly 40 million. The African blacks and the Far East natives who immigrated there add up to more than 25 million. The previous population structure of the Netherlands is about to break down, with 35 million natives and blacks and nearly 30 million whites. The survival rate of black and native babies is very low, only 1/3 of the survival rate of Dutch whites. That is, it only takes one generation for the Dutch white population to rise to 75 million. However, due to the low survival rate, the population of blacks and natives will not double at most, reaching 7 million. At that time, with a population of 145 million in the Netherlands, Dutch whites will have the upper hand. Of course, Dutch whites, blacks, Far East natives, etc. are all consumers of Dutch industrial products and the domestic market. At present, even African blacks and those Far East natives who have rushed there, it is normal for them to consume plastic products. In fact, the current domestic consumption level of the Netherlands is higher than that of Germany with a population of nearly 50 million and the Austro-Hungarian Empire with a population of 30 million, a total of 80 million people. In some aspects, the 30 million white people in the Netherlands alone are much more consuming than these two countries. For example, in terms of bicycle consumption, every household of white people in the Netherlands should have a bicycle, while in Germany and Austria, only one is achieved in 3 households. For example, in terms of car consumption, every 3 households of white people in the Netherlands should have a car. In Germany and Austria, only 20 households have one. This is a huge gap. The rise of the Netherlands is naturally not just about cars and bicycles. The Netherlands is also far ahead of Germany in terms of road and railway mileage. Every railway on the Australian continent is more than 3,000 kilometers long, and the construction of 3 vertical and 2 horizontal railways that connect what is needed has mobilized more than 500,000 black and Far Eastern indigenous workers. The 5 main lines exceed 200 million kilometers, not to mention other branch lines. The railway lines on the Australian continent exceed 60,000 kilometers. The roads exceed 200,000 kilometers. The Netherlands' development in Australia is comprehensive. The docks are built according to the reference of the military docks of the earliest steam battleships in Europe. More than 400 docks of various sizes have been built along the coast of the Australian mainland, of which more than 50 can dock 5,000-ton steam battleships. There are more than 10 docks of 10,000 tons or more. The three major Dutch consortiums, the East India Group, formerly the East India Company, the Far East Group, and the United Group have become the world's top consortiums and the most advanced planners of science and technology industries. They are also the companies with the most invention patents in the world after 1,865. The three major consortiums account for more than 70% of the world's new inventions. The inventions of a consortium are even more than those of the United Kingdom, Germany, the United States, and France. They are truly rich enough to rival a country. Chapter 983. The chaos in Latin America has just begun. The development of the situation in Latin America was taken very seriously by Alexander III of the Russian Empire and Prime Minister Gorchakov. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be difficult for the future Tsars to be at peace, because the Russian Empire would become stronger and stronger, and if the reform was successful, the national strength of the Russian Empire would be even more prosperous. On the contrary, the weight of the Netherlands in the heart of the Russian Empire would decrease. Now that Alexander II, the original lord of the revival, was suddenly assassinated, the Russian Empire fell into a brief civil strife. Now that Alexander II has come to power, the first priority is to consolidate his power in person, and on the contrary, it has entered a defensive stage in diplomacy. But in order to safeguard interests, it is not a bad idea to borrow the influence of the Netherlands to promote defense. The Russian Empire is now learning from the Netherlands to issue bonds in the country to raise funds for the development of the Russian Empire's Far East Railway, and to reserve more ammunition, etc., all in preparation for defense. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is now participating in the war, will become a strong and hostile country for Latin American countries. Latin American countries used to be relatively friendly to European countries, but now they are not even a buffer zone. The Austro-Mexico War is reshaping the geopolitical structure of the American continent. This war may put an end to the peace period after the Spanish colonial Latin American independence trend in the first 20 years of the 19th century, triggered by the Napoleonic Wars. It will also bring the American continent into a war in which the entire continent and foreign countries participate. Since Portugal and Spain launched the global maritime power, the game between sea power and army has never stopped. For a series of Latin American countries, they will truly face the invasion of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a European power across the ocean, and let Latin American countries face threats into a new stage. With Mexico and the Austro-Hungarian Empire losing thousands of troops, the two countries will not give up. Mexico is more eager to regain the Yucatan Peninsula. Since Mexico has put in so much energy, if it retreats now, it will not only be a waste of effort, but also lose face in the ranks of European powers, so Vienna will not easily compromise. Everyone can guess that the next war between the two countries should be more intense than it is now. Mexico has repeatedly stated that the conditions for peace talks are that Austria-Hungary withdraws from all the territory of the country. Mexico's previous condition was that Austria-Hungary would not give up even 1 meter of the occupied area. Such a tit-for-tat confrontation, with no room for compromise, has led to the outbreak of this war. With a continuous military assistance from the 13-nation alliance, the outline of the order after the Latin American Independence War more than 60 years ago began to emerge. The signs of chaos in the war also began to show in front of everyone. The 5 Central American countries, Colombia, Venezuela and other former weak countries have begun to gain more independent strength. Ecuador, a country that has become independent from Colombia, has now become the headquarters of the 13-nation group and has almost become the place with the greatest influence in the Netherlands. Even Chile cannot match the number of troops deployed by the Netherlands there. The Netherlands has 10,000 troops in Ecuador. Chile has deployed 5,000 people, and the remaining 5,000 talents are distributed in other Latin American countries. For example, there are more than 2,000 Dutch troops in the Panama region of Colombia. In the current war between Mexico and Austria-Hungary, the Netherlands has currently deployed 3,000 people to Guatemala in southern Mexico. This time, the coalition forces hidden in Guatemala numbered 20,000 people, of which the Netherlands accounted for 1/10. The global impact of the Austro-Hungarian and Mexican wars has just begun, and the era of war before the Napoleonic Wars has been restored. The fierce game between the land power of the German-Austrian alliance and the Netherlands and the sea power countries will give Britain and other countries a different experience. From the perspective of geopolitical logic, after the Napoleonic Wars, the sea power systems such as Britain, France, Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands competed with the land power systems such as the German Empire, Austria, and Tsarist Russia. As Germany began to move toward the sea, the members of the sea power expanded. At present, the army only has the Tsarist Empire in Austria-Hungary, so the sea power has become a struggle for power. At present, Austria-Hungary is allied with Germany and uses each other. Germany uses Austria-Hungary to endorse itself, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire uses Germany to embolden itself. Germany asked Austria-Hungary to occupy Mexico first to expand the results of the war, and Austria-Hungary did it. Now the test of the 13-nation group shows that it is not soft tofu, but directly hard against Austria-Hungary, which makes Germany hesitate. In addition, the role played by the International Court of Justice in the Austro-Mexican War was mixed. The International Court of Justice condemned Mexico's aggression against Mexico, which was also a member of the organization, but was unable to stop the war. Other countries did not stand up to stop it. Obviously, they were watching to see if there was any profit to be made. Mexico had experienced constitutional amendments, held general elections, and laid the political foundation for Mexico to become the new heart of the Americas. After the Austro-Mexican War, the Austro-Hungarian Empire might find that it did not gain much, but lost a lot. As long as Mexico held on, its international status would be greatly improved, and it would be able to resist a European power without falling. This is something that Brazil and Argentina have not done yet. Even the United States was able to resist the repeated attacks of Britain, a maritime hegemon, and gain independence with the support of France, Spain, Portugal and other countries. Moreover, Mexico will receive a steady stream of weapons support from other members of the G13, which will allow Mexico to train a powerful army. At that time, even if Mexico's comprehensive strength is not as strong as the United States, Brazil and Argentina, in terms of combat power, Argentina and Brazil may not be as strong as it, and even the United States can only win by numbers. At that time, Mexico's voice in the Americas will inevitably expand dramatically. William IV can foresee that if Mexico blocks the Austro-Hungarian attack, the G13 will establish its deterrent power around the world, and the German-Austrian alliance will find it difficult to pose a threat to the group. In addition, the Netherlands is constantly manipulating the situation in Latin America on the Pacific side, and the German-Austrian alliance can be foreseen to face huge resistance. William IV, it seems that we need to increase our force projection to Latin America. Prime Minister Lyndon, why? William IV, Germany will not be quiet all the time. I am sure that they have never interrupted their preparations. Latin America will be even more chaotic next time. Third, with a decline of influence in Eastern Europe, the Caucasus, and Central Asia, Russia's center of gravity may move further north and east. The impact of this shift on the North Pacific, Northeast Asia, and the Arctic Ocean may gradually emerge in the next few decades. By then, Russia will still face the pressure of the sea power system dominated by the United States and other countries. More than 10. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 984. Mexico's losses were heavy. When the news of the war in North America Mexico reached the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Emperor Franz Joseph I of the Austrian Empire was furious in Vienna. He originally thought that 30,000 people could trample Mexico City, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire could do whatever it wanted in Mexico, and even use this to strengthen the reputation of Austria-Hungary. But now it took 7,300 people to capture 3 towns. The loss of the Mexican country bumpkins was even less than that of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, with a net loss of only 4,300 people. This made him think of more than a decade ago, when he saw the Netherlands, Germany, France and other countries attacking cities and taking a large number of African colonies in Africa, and he also followed his heart and took action. At that time, he took the colonies of Nigeria, Benin, northern Ethiopia, southern Niger, southwestern Zaire, southeastern Burkina Faso and other colonies in West Africa. At that time, he was greedy and saw that the Kingdom of Italy failed to attack the indigenous Kingdom of Ethiopia. He was so arrogant that he ordered the Austrian army to suffer a defeat in Italy, and reluctantly retreated to Tunisia and attacked Ethiopia. But this time he understood what it meant to lose one after another. The Austro-Hungarian Empire left more than 25,000 soldiers' bodies a year, and nearly 10,000 wounded soldiers. In the end, they left sadly like Italy. This incident was a thorn in Joseph I's heart. Although it has been more than 10 years, it is still very uncomfortable to think about it. Unexpectedly, this time Mexico also made the Austro-Hungarian Empire and him feel that failure was so close again. Mexico lost 4,300, Austria-Hungary lost 7,300. Is this the style of the European powers? Joseph I felt embarrassed when he saw this result. Before the attack, the Austro-Hungarian Empire had 30,000 troops in the Yucatan Peninsula. Now after a war, there are only more than 22,700 people left, and 7,300 people were lost. It can be said that the loss was heavy. The Austrian emperor ordered the Austro-Hungarian Empire to leave 10,000 troops outside the Yucatan Peninsula after the army in Mexico rested for a day, and the remaining 12,700 people began to continue to attack Mexico. In order to pursue the Mexican troops fleeing to Tuxtepec and Tlacotalpan, each sent 2,000 troops to attack. The remaining force of more than 8,700 troops, 3,000 went to Jesus Carranza in the south to supervise and prevent the emergence of Mexican troops in the south, and the remaining 5,000 were to consolidate the three newly occupied towns of Corcus, Latam and Minatitlan, with about 1,500 people respectively. Such a deployment seems very even, and it is definitely reasonable to allocate on the offensive side, but what if Mexico suddenly counterattacks? Franz Joseph I's worries were not redundant. He ordered another 20,000 troops from the ports in Croatia on the Mediterranean coast to North America, Mexico, and ordered that they must arrive at the port of Merida on the Yucatan Peninsula within a month. Although the news of the Austro-Hungarian Empire's reinforcement was secret, the news still spread like wildfire, especially in an environment where all countries were staring at Vienna's every move. Not to mention whether the Netherlands would directly give the information collected by intelligence personnel to Mexico. Even countries like Britain and France that were not directly involved would also pass the news to Mexico, because when two tigers fight, one will be injured. Britain, France and other countries hope that the fight in Latin America will be more lively, so that the pressure from the German-Austrian alliance on Britain and France will be reduced. Therefore, Mexico has been constantly receiving news from many international countries around the world, all of which report that Vienna will send 20,000 troops to Merida within a month. This news made the citizens of Mexico nervous, but strangely, the military and senior officials of the Mexican government were reluctant to talk too much about it. We will not speculate too much about whether Austro-Hungary will increase its troops or not. We only know that we will defeat any enemy on our territory. Yes, what we can tell you is that even if Austro-Hungary's current total force of 500,000 all leave Vienna for Mexico, as long as our 9 million Mexicans are united and our allies continue to support us, we believe that even a powerful empire like Austro-Hungary will only be defeated. We are confident that we can repel any invader. This was the ambition publicly stated by Mexican President González in the presidential palace. Obviously, in these wars, Mexico's losses were nearly one-third smaller than those of Austria-Hungary, which made him more confident. On October 6, 1881, 5,000 Mexican troops met the pursuing 2,000 Austro-Hungarian troops in Tuxtepec. The latter, facing a garrison twice as strong, immediately wanted to retreat, but the Mexican army suddenly attacked from the side. In panic, the Mexican army defending the city also attacked head-on. In the end, only 180 of the 2,000 pursuing Austrian troops escaped, and the remaining 1,820 people either became prisoners or became a corpse. The Austrian army was hit hard again. However, in Tlacotalpan on the northern coast, 2,000 Austro-Hungarian infantrymen quickly captured this coastal town with the help of the Austro-Hungarian navy. After this port town, continuing north along the coast is the port of Veracruz, the largest port on the Atlantic coast of eastern Mexico. This is the largest port east of Mexico City, the capital of Mexico, and the largest Atlantic coastal military port in Mexico City. Almost one-third of Mexico's warships are docked here. The city has a population of more than 500,000, accounting for 1/14 of the entire country of Mexico, almost half of Mexico City, so it is absolutely significant that the Austro-Hungarian Empire took over Tlacotalpan. Of course, It would be even better if Tuxtepec had not failed. Because in that case, the battle line can be pulled to a distance of only 350 kilometers from Mexico City. At the same time, on the southern side of Jesus Carranza, the armies of the two countries were deadlocked there. Small fights. Obviously, the Austro-Hungarian Empire occupying the north does not have too many troops to attack the other side, so it is better to wait for the arrival of new troops within a month. Mexico is attacking Tlacotalpan and Tuxtepec in the northwest of Austria-Hungary, which makes the troops deployed in which direction. Therefore, Mexico also clearly knows that the other side is short of troops. The army's counterattack may achieve good results, but in the end, Mexico City is short of troops, and the priority of defending the capital is given, so the southern Mexican army can only attack and defend. Small achievements can't change the general trend. So, the second war between the two sides ended. This time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost only 3,000 people, and also captured the coastal town of Tlacotalpan in Mexico, which was more important than Latam. On the contrary, Mexico lost 5,000 people and lost a key port town, which was a heavy loss. When the two joined forces, the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost 11,300 people, but gained nearly 80,000 square kilometers and 5 key towns. Mexico lost 9,300 people, 80,000 square kilometers of territory, and several towns in the southeast, which was a heavy loss. Mexico lost almost 1/10 of its 100,000 regular troops, while the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost only 1/50th of its 500,000 regular troops. The balance of power between the two sides still tilted towards the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Chapter 985, The Socialist Party's Expansion. The second round of the Austro-Hungarian-Mexican War has already begun, with a total death toll of more than 20,000 people, which is already more than the death toll of the German-Austrian War in 1867, although it is still less than the Franco-Prussian War. All members of the new Dutch cabinet government, which began on February 20, 1879, attended the meeting of the Dutch Privy Council. William IV set the direction on the Austro-Hungarian War from the beginning. Period. Prime Minister Theo von Linden, Christian Party, Chief Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Jules Darneton, Socialist Party, Foreign Minister Joseph Beit, Socialist Party, Interior Minister David Blank, Christian Party, Defense Minister Fox, Christian Party, Industry Minister Joseph Lunka, Transport Minister Byers, Christian Party, Education Minister Mari Philip, Socialist Party, Energy Minister Hester, Socialist Party, Chief Justice Robert Cook, Christian Party, Privy Council President and Speaker of the House of Commons Baron Caslin, Christian Party, Lord Privy Seal and Speaker of the House of Lords Marcus Andrew Smith, Christian Party. In addition, the leader of the opposition Liberal Party, Gerrit de Vries, who served as Prime Minister for the first two terms from 1872 to 1879, also led several senators to attend the Privy Council meeting. Gerrit de Vries, Your Majesty, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will obviously not give up at the moment. Those towns will not satisfy their appetite. The loss of more than 10,000 people is absolutely unacceptable to Franz Joseph. I know him. Prime Minister Linden, what preparations do we have in the Netherlands at present? As the largest party in the Kingdom of the Netherlands, although it lost the last general election, it was also a joint campaign by the Christian Party and the Socialist Party to defeat the Liberal Party, so the largest party is still the largest party. At present, the Socialist Party and the Christian Party have not been able to defeat each other in the general election alone. Therefore, the words of Gerrit de Vries, who continues to serve as the leader of the Liberal Party, are still very important. Linden, currently, the Netherlands has supplied weapons to Mexico. The low-end weapons support of the 13-nation group to Mexico is already known to the world, and it is not a military secret here. Gerrit de Vries, I don't think this could withstand the attack of Austria-Hungary. Most of the weapons supplied to Mexico by the 13 Nations group were rifles and old-fashioned matchlock guns, as well as some pistols. Although these increased the firepower against Mexico, in fact, many Austro-Hungarians were using semi-automatic rifles, which had stronger firepower. Gerrit de Vries had served as Prime Minister for 2 terms, and he knew that it would be difficult to stop Austria-Hungary from continuing to send troops to Mexico with this. Linden, if we add that, it will naturally not have much effect. However, what if the 13 international coalition, which we are currently leading, has secretly sent 20,000 troops to the border area with Mexico in northern Guatemala. Gerrit de Vries looked at Lyndon in surprise, and then looked at His Majesty William IV. His Majesty was sitting there calmly. Obviously, he did not admit that it was true, but he did not deny that what Lyndon said was false. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Since the Liberal Party stepped down after ruling the Dutch cabinet for 16 years in 1879, the Liberal Party has only realized the helplessness of the opposition party in the past 2 years. A lot of information is sealed, and the Liberal Party is also the same in the military. For example, in this military operation, the role of the Netherlands in it is not very clear to him. After all, the key departments such as the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are controlled by either the Christian Party or the Socialist Party. These two parties, which were difficult to shake the ruling position of the Liberal Party in the past, have now stepped on the Liberal Party to take power. Especially looking at Jules Darnetting, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of the Netherlands and the leader of the Socialist Party, who was sitting silently next to Lyndon and listened to his confrontation with Lyndon very seriously. This guy is the most hateful. He looks honest, but he is actually the most treacherous. In the past 2 years, the power of the Dutch Socialist Party has expanded very quickly. Many county and city elections have made the Socialist Party rise. For example, in Adelaide, South Australia, the Liberal Party's stronghold, the Speaker of the Parliament and the majority of seats of the two counties have fallen into the hands of the Socialist Party. Not to mention that the Socialist Party also won the high-ranking official and the Speaker of the Provincial Parliament of Western Australia some time ago, and fully governed Western Australia. It can be said that this is the second province in mainland Australia where the Socialist Party has fully governed. The previous one was the province of William, formerly known as Victoria. You should know that there are only 6 provinces in mainland Australia, namely South Australia, Queensland and the capital Melbourne, which are governed by the Liberal Party. New South Wales and Northern Australia, formerly known as the Northern Territory, governed by the Christian Party. The Socialist Party has always won the Western Australia when it governed the province of William, formerly Victoria, in the general election. Therefore, the threat of the Socialist Party is more threatening to the Liberal Party than the Christian Party. Gerrit de Vliet was very wary of Jules Darnetting. After all, compared to the bold Prime Minister Lyndon, who was the first military-turned-political prime minister in Dutch history, Jules Darnetting, the party leader and deputy prime minister, and Chairman Joseph Beit, the current foreign minister of the Netherlands, who were political intelligence spies deployed by the Netherlands and Belgium earlier, were more difficult to deal with. You have to know that these two guys were like dragons crossing the river. They successfully became the prime minister and speaker of the Belgian National Assembly in Belgium. They suppressed the first king of Belgium, Leopold I, and died in anger. After his son Leopold I succeeded to the throne, he was also forced to retreat step by step, allowing these two people to take full power in Belgium. The Dutch completely suppressed the French in Belgium and even united with a king of the Netherlands. Finally, taking advantage of the Franco-Prussian War in 1870, the northern part of Belgium, where the Dutch were the majority, fully returned and joined the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Therefore, these two people have a very special status in the Netherlands. It can be said that they are the biggest contributors to the country's recovery of Belgian territory, and it was a peaceful return. In addition, when Belgium returned, the Dutch population had more than 3 million people, and these people were staunch supporters of Jules Darnetting and Joseph Beit during the Belgian administration. Now more than half of them have migrated to the Far East, especially in the provinces of William, Victoria, and Western Australia, where the Socialist Party is in power, and even many have migrated to New South Wales, where the Christian Party is located. Currently, the second largest city in New South Wales, Canberra, which His Majesty has signed the consent, has nearly 400,000 people, most of whom are immigrants from the original Belgian Dutch. It can be said that the Socialist Party's expansion is too fast. Even the Liberal Party feels that the biggest threat to returning to power is no longer the second largest party, the Christian Party, but the Socialist Party. Quotation mark. Chapter 986, The Netherlands is making a feint to the east and attacking in the west. Gerrit de Vries even wondered if the Liberal Party could suppress the Socialist Party in the next general election in December 1882, and adopt a coalition election model to invite the Christian Party to form a government to suppress the Socialist Party. However, looking at the high-spirited Christian Prime Minister Lyndon in front of him, he knew that he couldn't act too hastily. Since he had made up his mind, he had more goodwill in his eyes. He was surprised and said, "We have led the 2013 coalition forces to Guatemala?" Seeing Lyndon nod, he said, "If so, we can still withstand the opponent's attack, but Mexico has too much territory occupied by Austria-Hungary. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire starts to defend now, it will be a big trouble for Mexico and the coalition forces." Lyndon, "Of course not, we have already made a second plan." Gerrit de Vries said, "Second plan? Are you sure?" "Okay." William IV waved his hand and said, "There are too many things involved in this, and it will take a while to explain. If Lord Gerrit wants to know, then after the Privy Council meeting, you can ask Prime Minister Lyndon or the Military Committee of the Ministry of National Defense for information. Any major transfers made by the Military Committee of the Netherlands Ministry of National Defense must be filed." Gerrit de Vries, as the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands and the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands and one of the 15 people with the status of Privy Council members, has the right to understand the current operation of the Netherlands, even if it is external operations. The Netherlands not only has interests in the Americas, but also other places are also key areas that the Netherlands needs to pay attention to. William IV, now let's talk about the situation in Southeast Asia. Lord Fox, as the Dutch Minister of Defense, how do we deploy troops on Sumatra now? Fox became the Minister of Defense of the Christian Party when Lyndon formed a cabinet in 1879. He was a staunch conservative. He also served in the Netherlands Ministry of National Defense for more than 20 years and knew the operation of the Ministry of National Defense like the back of his hand. Seeing William IV's question, he immediately replied, "Due to its important geographical location, it controls the key to the Malacca Strait in and out of the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean, and can also guard against a British garrison on the northern Malay Peninsula. So we have deployed heavy troops there. Currently the military has deployed 2 armies there with a total of 60,000 people, namely the 11th Army of 30,000 deployed in Medan, and 30,000 deployed in Palembang in Lampung Province." William IV, what is the naval situation? Fox followed, 10 second-generation submarines, 4 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 1 steam battleship, the Medan, and 8 first-class sailing battleships are deployed in the port of Medan. Palembang has also deployed 10 submarines, 2 heavy cruisers, 10 light cruisers, 6 second-class sailing battleships, and 1 steam battleship, the Palembang. Gerrit de Vries thought to himself, 20 submarines, 6 heavy cruisers, 10 light cruisers, 8 first-class sailing battleships, 6 second-class sailing battleships, and 2 steam battleships. This deployment is very powerful. William IV said, "What about the part of the Kingdom of Siam on the Malay Peninsula that was ceded to us?" In 1879, the Kingdom of Siam, later the successor was Thailand, leased a part of the Malay Peninsula south of Prachuap Khiri Khan to the Kingdom of the Netherlands for 100 years. Now the Netherlands is ruling there. The northern part of the country is close to the British colony of Burma, and the southern part is bordered by the British colony of Malaya, which is considered to have cut Britain in half on the Malay Peninsula. Therefore, the Kingdom of Siam was naturally afraid that Britain would take action there sooner or later. After all, the land area there was small, and there were long coastlines on the east and west sides. There were several naturally excellent ports such as Teo Gong, Sinclair, Nakhon Si Thammarat, Ban Lun, Chumpon, and Prachuap Khiri Khan in the east, and Satun, Krabi, Phuket, Phuong Nha, and Ranong on the Indian Ocean coast in the west. Britain had long been ruling over these ports, but unfortunately the Kingdom of Siam was very afraid of Britain's ambitions, so it defected to the Netherlands early, and finally it was a bargain for the Kingdom of the Netherlands and fell into the hands of the Netherlands. This is also the reason why Britain launched a comprehensive attack on the Netherlands both inside and outside. The Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam headed off under the threat of Britain and formed an anti-British alliance. Fox, at present, our Ministry of National Defense has deployed a division, 10,000 people, in the Malay Peninsula. As for the Navy, there are only sailing warships, almost all of which are second level, third level, fourth level, and fifth level sailing battleships that are about to be eliminated in the 1860s, with a total of about 20 ships. In addition, we have established submarine berthing ports in Sinclair and Pudong. Upon hearing this, William IV was relieved. Marching into the Malay Peninsula is a relatively big step for the Netherlands. When the Dutch territory stepped onto the Malay Peninsula, the Netherlands truly entered the eastern end of the Eurasian continent. The original homeland of the Netherlands in Western Europe is about 60,000 square kilometers. Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and East Oman in the Middle East total about 200,000 square kilometers. The Malay Peninsula in the Far East is about 110,000 square kilometers. These three Eurasian continents, a total of 370,000 square kilometers of land area, have become the basis for the Netherlands' rule in the Eurasian land, and a symbol of the sea power countries squeezing out the land power. Although it is not as fierce as the United Kingdom, which colonized India and Burma and Bangladesh for tens of millions of square kilometers at a time, it is also a considerable achievement. William IV, what is the British deployment on the Malay Peninsula? Fox, there are currently 5,000 people stationed there, but there is also a fleet docked at Malacca Port, with about 8 first-class sailing warships and 4 to 5 second- and third-class sailing warships. In addition, there are 2 small fleets deployed in Singapore Port and Kota Bharu Port in the southern part of the South China Sea. The latter is watching our Songkhla Port's every move, and the Singapore Port is nailed at the tip of Malacca entering the South China Sea. All ships entering and leaving are supervised by it. As for the Malacca Port, it is closely watching the ships passing through the strait there. The 3 fleets of 1 medium and 2 small and 5,000 people are the distribution of British forces in that 140,000 square kilometers of territory. What about the colony occupied by the British in North Kalimantan? William IV said, it is said that the British also attach great importance to it. Fox, currently, there are 20,000 native troops and only 5,000 British troops, a total of 7,000 people, but it has a medium-sized fleet with its headquarters in Bandar Seri Begawan. So, the British are very concerned about it. William IV frowned and said, now the world is watching the situation in Mexico and Latin America. We in the Netherlands are also being watched to see if we will send troops to the Mexican front to support. My plan is to use the Latin American army of the Group of 13 to support Mexico as a cover, and our troops will be mobilized to land on the route to Southeast Asia. Gerrit de Vries' heart jumped. He thought of something and looked at William IV with wide eyes. In addition to him, others almost had the same idea at the same time and looked at William IV in disbelief. At this time, William IV said shockingly, use the Mexican and even Latin American wars, let's see if we can take down Burma. As long as we take down Burma and even Bangladesh, then everyone, at least the next generation of us, will be worry-free. Chapter 987, Winning over the Persian Empire. The first goal of the meeting plan of the Dutch Privy Council was to continue to promote the Mexican War, use the Latin American 13 group as a cover, use Austria-Hungary to mix the German Empire, consume the strength and influence of these 2 countries, and prevent these 2 countries from having closer relations with the Latin American 13. At the same time, these 12 countries are firmly tied to the Dutch chariot and prosper with the Netherlands. The second goal is to make a feint to the east and attack the west. While using Latin American countries to consume the German-Austrian alliance, it can also quickly prepare for the expansion of the Southeast Asian peninsula in the Far East. The goal is to use the Kingdom of Siam, the predecessor of the future Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos, to lease part of the Malay Peninsula and bash it to the Netherlands for 100 years, so as to take over Burma and even Bangladesh when Britain is not fully prepared. There is also the British part of the Malay Peninsula. As long as this is taken, the Dutch hegemony in the Far East will be more stable, at least in the Indian Ocean and Pacific region, the maritime hegemony will be established. Even if Britain occupied the Indian Peninsula and the Suez Canal, the threat to the Netherlands would be even smaller. William IV said at a meeting that at that time, the Eurasian continent in the north of the Russian Empire could be used to deal with Britain. This is why William IV was confident that he could obtain the territory of Myanmar and even Bangladesh. The Russian Empire expanded southward to the north of the Indian Peninsula in Central Asia, and the Netherlands used Qatar, the United Arab Emirates and East Oman to make Britain sleepless. In addition, the rapid attack on Sumatra Island at sea and the acquisition of Burma, William IV said that the surrounding military ports on land and sea should be used to surround the more than 100,000 British troops in India. Moreover, many of them were Indian native troops, which might be an easy victory for the Netherlands. As William IV told this story, punctuation was added little by little on a large map, and the eyes of the 20 members of the Privy Council suddenly glowed with gold. Obviously, according to his words and practices, it was no longer a difficult task to defeat Britain. William IV finally said, The key is to get the Russian Empire to attack Afghanistan and North India. As long as this is done, it will be half successful. Foreign Minister Joseph Beit responded and promised to complete this task. Gerrit de Vries agreed with this and asked, "Your Majesty, just in case or to increase your confidence, I think, can we go a step further?" Prime Minister Linden, the leader of the Christian Party, and Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Jules Darneton, the leader of the Socialist Party, looked at each other slightly. Obviously, they were wary. But this vigilance was correct, because Gerrit de Vries wanted to use this to show that the Liberal Party's diplomatic ability did not disappear because it was in opposition. William IV looked at the actions of the three people and was very satisfied in his heart. This was the effect required for competition. The Liberal Party in Prince Yi's palace was too powerful, and it had been in power for 16 years, which was too long. After all, it was almost the same time as he came to power. Apart from anything else, many domestic public opinions believed that he favored the Liberal Party alone, which made many people dissatisfied. William IV was aware of this, but before 1870, the Christian Party at that time was unable to support itself and could not deal with the Liberal Party. So in 1869 he began to plan to break the deadlock and recover northern Belgium from the Netherlands. Millions of Belgians returned to the Netherlands and became a new force in Dutch politics. The Socialist Party of Jules Darneton, which he cultivated, became the third force in Dutch politics. Afterwards, Jules Darneton and Joseph Beit lived up to expectations and added various characteristic programs to the Socialist Party that were different from the Christian Party and the Liberal Party. They took the disadvantaged and lower-class people, foreign exchanges and even immigrants as the source of nutrients. The Netherlands happened to move its capital to the Far East Australian continent after 1871, and the world absorbed immigrants to the Far East Australian continent. Therefore, the Socialist Party, which took advantage of this opportunity, was a latecomer with a strong attitude, and was even comparable to the conservative Christian Party in many places. In terms of potential, even the Liberal Party was more attractive to join the party. The general trend is the Socialist Party. The Socialist Party has also become a model for other small parties in the Netherlands, and they are eager to learn from it. The news received by William IV showed that the number of political parties on record in the Netherlands has now exceeded 10. This is also the indicator set by William IV. Party members must reach more than 500 before they can establish a party. When the number of political parties reaches 10, the number of political parties is not allowed to increase. Others who want to participate in politics must choose to join the party or run for election as an independent. This is to prevent the interest groups that can be seen everywhere from acting independently and disrupting the unity of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. William IV looked at the three giants of the Dutch political arena in front of him, and began to think about other things in his mind. At the same time, William IV's decision soon became the content recorded in the notebooks of the Privy Council members present. Gerrit de Vries's performance obviously let the Liberal Party know in advance. The senior Privy Council members were not surprised, but the other Privy Council members of the Christian Party and the Socialist Party were surprised and vigilant. Obviously, these people still dare not be careless about the Liberal Party. Prime Minister Linden asked at this time, "I don't know where Mr. Gerrit is going to increase his chances." Socialist Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Jules Darneton also smiled and said, "Yes, I am also curious about where Mr. Gerrit's chances of winning are increased." William IV pretended not to see and chose to remain silent, watching everything happening in front of him calmly. It seemed that all this had nothing to do with him, and it was not caused by him on purpose. Gerrit de Vries, "My opinion is that we have won over the Russian Empire to attack Afghanistan and North India, so why not win over the Persian Empire next to the British-occupied colony of India?" Persian Empire? Many people were silent after hearing this. The Persian Empire is an ancient country. This country has never been very fond of Europeans, and is even very hostile. It combines politics and religion, and is a group of crazy people who don't care about their lives and are unreasonable. It is said that Britain wanted to coerce the other side to hand over the northern coast of the Persian Gulf to Britain as a military port, and fully rule the Persian Gulf and even the Arabian Gulf. In the end, they drove the British away from the whole country, and even the diplomatic envoys such as the embassy almost went to the Arabian Sea to feed the fish. Although the British guns are advanced, the barefoot are not afraid of those wearing shoes. To be honest, Britain was scared by these people, just like the heavenly kingdom of Hong Xiuquan's brothers in the Qing dynasty. Westerners are afraid of this. Although the Netherlands did not participate in it, it still felt the trembling fear from the British. There is no need. Few countries in the West are willing to provoke each other. They would rather provoke the Kingdom of Ethiopia, which was invaded by the Kingdom of Italy and the Austro-Hungarian Empire but failed. Lyndon and Joel Stoniton shouted almost at the same time, "Does the Liberal Party have a solution?" Under the gaze of William IV, Gerrit de Vries nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, the Persian Empire is currently ruled by the Qajar dynasty, which was established by the Turks. Britain and Russia are plundering the Persian Empire, so the Persian Empire has a grudge against these two countries. The Netherlands has become the target of the Persian Empire. As early as before 1876, the Liberal Party began to interact with them. This time, I am willing to go to Tehran for a friendly visit." William IV laughed and said, "Let's do it, it's done, a great achievement." Chapter 988, The Envied Socialist Party. The Qajar dynasty that now rules the Persian Empire was established in 1779 with Tehran as its capital. As for why, it was of course because of the harassment from maritime powers such as Britain and France, which made them feel insecure, especially seeing the intensity of the blockade and anti-blockade war between Britain and France during the Napoleonic Wars. The new dynasty chose to build its capital in the northern part of the interior. In the early days of the Qajar dynasty, Western powers stepped up their struggle for power in the Persian Empire, all wanting to turn the newly established dynasty in this country into their own colonial agent. In 1801, the Russian Empire annexed the Georgia region of the Persian Empire. In the same year, Britain fought 3 wars with the Persian Empire ruled by the armored royal family. In the end, the British lost the war, which led to the Persian Empire ceding land as compensation and recognizing the independence of Afghanistan. Just like a group of sharks smelling fishy smells, seeing that Russia and Britain tasted meat, France, Austria, and the United States, which had only been born for more than 20 years, successively forced the Persian Empire to sign unequal treaties. The Persian Empire was very aggrieved. In the 1850s, Britain and Russia forcibly seized the privileges of mining, road construction, bank establishment, and military training in the Persian Empire. However, because the people and government of the Persian Empire were very dissatisfied, Britain and Russia did not dare to continue oppression, so it came to 1881, 30 years later. Watching Gerrit de Vries talking about the history of the Persian Empire, the people present began to have a general understanding of this extremely mysterious country. William IV wanted to know more. According to history, by 1907, Britain and Russia put aside their prejudices and colluded with each other to establish their sphere of influence in the Persian Empire. The north belonged to the Russian Empire, the south belonged to Britain, and the central part was a buffer zone. By then, the Persian Empire would become a semi-colony of Britain and Russia. Until Reza Khan overthrew the Qajar dynasty in 1921 and established the Pahlavi dynasty in 1925. Jules Stanadang said pointedly, "How is Sir Gerrit going to start? You must know that, as you said just now, the Persian Empire is now the target of exploitation by Britain and Russia. This country should be avoiding Britain and Russia at present. Do you think Tehran will support us to fight against Britain? Yes, the Persian Empire can hardly protect itself, and it is almost afraid of Britain. How can it support the Netherlands to fight against Britain?" Everyone else also looked at Gerrit de Vries. Joseph Beit said, "I think Gerrit should pay attention to the fact that the Russian Empire is also a key player. If the Persian Empire helps us to fight against Britain, but the Russian Empire stabs us in the back, Tehran will be angry because we cannot guarantee their safety. Maybe we will be retaliated. Don't let Britain and Persia deal with us in Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and East Oman in the west of the Persian Gulf together. That will be difficult to deal with." When the others heard this, they nodded in agreement. If you don't think about the future, you will have immediate worries. The two people in front of them are indeed the prime ministers and speakers of the parliament in Belgium. The two of them are very compatible in political cooperation, which makes Lyndon next to them very envious. On the contrary, Gerrit de Vries, who is asked, is more vigilant about the two people in front of him. William IV was secretly happy. These two people are worthy of being the twin stars of the Dutch political arena that he has focused on cultivating. They are becoming more and more far-sighted. Since he came to power in December 1861 and personally ruled the Kingdom of the Netherlands, if you ask him what he is most unhappy about, it is that his subordinates are not used to it. John Rudolph Thorbecke was the first prime minister after he came to power. The two had known each other for a long time when William IV was the crown prince, so there was less running-in period and there was no great hostility and cooperation. At that time, William IV re-triggered the East India Company and succeeded, which made William IV, as the Crown Prince, control the huge Dutch commercial aircraft carrier. So Thorbecke, the Prime Minister of the Liberal Party and who had a misunderstanding with his father, had to cooperate with him. Of course, Thorbecke was also impressed by William IV's strength and talent, and he did not disobey William IV's instructions in various policies. Originally from February 1862 to February 1870, because of the Dutch-Portuguese War and the African War, the 1866 term of the first Prime Minister was delayed for 1 year for the general election. It was not until 1867 that he took office as the second Prime Minister until February 1871. These 9 years were the most important 9 years for laying the foundation for the rapid development of the Dutch economy and military, and also the most important 9 years for William IV to emerge and become a global political giant. With his experience as a prime minister in the 1860s and his strong appeal as the leader of the Liberal Party, Thorbecke laid a solid foundation for the Netherlands in these 9 years. Then, Thorbecke's confidant, Gerrit de Vries, came to power. The 4 years from February 1871 to February 1875 became the 4 years with the greatest changes in Dutch politics. The Netherlands moved its capital from Amsterdam in Europe to Melbourne in the Far East Australian continent. Jules Darnetting, a meritorious minister who led North Belgium back to the Netherlands, established a new political party, the Socialist Party, and rose strongly to become the third largest party in the Netherlands. At the same time, the Dutch constitution directly changed the election law. The Netherlands became the first country in the world where political parties could form a coalition government instead of a one-on-one duel. The Liberal Party then weakened and no longer monopolized the new blood in the Dutch political arena. Instead, the Socialist Party was better at sucking blood. In February 1875, Gerrit de Vries was re-elected as the Prime Minister of the Netherlands with a slight advantage. The Liberal Party barely maintained its position as the ruling party. At that time, the Socialist Party did not lean on the Christian Party. Even in this election, the Socialist Party won the ruling power or parliamentary power of many overseas provinces and cities. In Australia, it also seized the province of William, Victoria, and with the blessing of the ruling status of the 4 provinces in northern Belgium, the Socialist Party's status is catching up with the Christian Party, which only ruled 2 provinces in Australia. This shocked the whole of the Netherlands and Europe. From February 1875 to February 1879, the Socialist Party expanded comprehensively and blossomed in all the ruling areas of the Netherlands. It played a combination of punches, and towns, cities, provinces, the House of Commons, House of Representatives, and the House of Lords, senators, all gained a lot. In particular, seats in parliaments at all levels have obtained tickets to fully guarantee the ruling of various places. All of this is inseparable from the efforts of the 2 people in front of him. When Gerrit de Vries thought of this, he suddenly had an idea and found that he found vigilance in Linden's eyes. He immediately had an idea in his mind. Perhaps, the Liberal Party can start with this. That's right, the Christian Party and the Socialist Party are not very harmonious. Interests are always the driving force of cooperation and separation. Since Gerrit de Vries had an idea, he naturally started to act immediately, so he tentatively showed goodwill and said, "I think this way, the Privy Council meeting is in a hurry, I will go to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and have a good talk with Minister Joseph later. It just so happens that I also need to use the identity of a diplomatic envoy to negotiate with the Persian Empire." Linden's face changed drastically, and he looked back and forth at the 2 of them vigilantly. Jules Darnetting was stunned at first, then looked at Joseph Bite with a smile, and the 2 nodded tacitly. The process fell into Gerrit de Vries's eyes, and he smiled with satisfaction. William IV, who was sitting on the wall, watched the 4 people's constant actions and found it interesting. Chapter 989, The Dutch Federal Reserve pushes for an appreciation of the Dutch guilder. 1881, Privy Council meeting in Melbourne, Kingdom of the Netherlands. Gerrit de Vries was determined to be the Dutch government and royal envoy to win over the Persian Empire, to become the Netherlands' special envoy to deal with Britain. He will begin to cross the Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf in mid-October and confirm that he will arrive in Tehran before the beginning of November for a secret friendly visit. Diplomatic issues and military deployments were discussed in an orderly manner in the Privy Council. In the end, this topic was completed in one morning. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, another topic began. William Ivey asked Jules Darneton, the Minister of Finance, also the leader of the Socialist Party, who is a member of the Privy Council and the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Sachem, how is the Dutch Federal Reserve now? Since the secret announcement of the establishment of the Dutch Central Bank, the Dutch Federal Reserve, in Wellington, New Zealand in January 1880, William Ivey would ask about the construction of the Dutch Federal Reserve every once in a while. As the director of the Dutch Financial Committee and the first chairman of the Dutch Federal Reserve, he was well prepared for this. Since the establishment of the Dutch Federal Reserve in Wellington, New Zealand in January 1880, last year, with the support of Finance Minister Jules Darneton, and with the support of a series of top figures in the Dutch financial world, including Andrew, Assistant Minister of the Treasury and Special Assistant to the National Financial Committee, Frank, President of the East India National Bank, Vanderlip, President of the Far Eastern Commercial Bank, Davidson, President of the United Private Bank, Sir Henry, Senior Partner of the Royal Dutch Investment Company, also often called the Royal Investment Company's Private Envoy, and Norton, President of the First National Bank of Sydney controlled by the Royal Investment Company. Everything is currently moving in the direction of our plan. After the project of establishing the Dutch Federal Reserve was established in January 1881, the cabinet government and both the upper and lower houses of the Dutch Parliament began to fully support it in February. The Dutch Federal Reserve Bank is now controlled by the Parliament, responsible to the government, and supervised by His Majesty. According to Your Majesty's plan, 5 of 10 of the directors of the Dutch Federal Reserve will be directly or indirectly elected by the Banking Federation, and the rest will be appointed by the cabinet members and the royal family. According to William Ivey's plan, the Dutch Federal Reserve Committee will eventually be appointed by the Dutch Prime Minister, but the real function of the committee will be led by the Advisory Committee of the Netherlands Reserve Bank controlled by the Dutch royal family represented by William Ivey. At the same time, in order to bypass the power of the Prime Minister, the Dutch Prime Minister can only appoint half of the committee members, and the remaining committee members need to be selected from the chairman of the 10 Federal Reserve Banks in the Netherlands. According to the established rules, all committee members are kept secret from the public. Currently, there are 20 Privy Council members present, and only 5 are members of the mysterious institution of the Dutch Federal Reserve. The other 5 are the elites of the banking industry, and they are not here. William Ivey does not count, and each current Prime Minister counts as one, and the Cabinet Minister, the Finance Minister, the Chairman of the Dutch Federal Reserve, the Speaker of the Upper House, and the Speaker of the Lower House are 5 people in total. These 5 people are also fixed members of each Privy Council. As for the other Privy Council members who are not members of the Dutch Federal Reserve, it can be said that they are not qualified. Naturally, they are curious about this top financial institution in the Netherlands. So when William Ivey and Sachem asked and answered, they all chose to observe quietly. From Sachem's answer, it seems that not much is revealed. William Ivey will naturally not be satisfied with Sachem's statement. So he went straight to the point and said, "Last year I asked to improve the international status of the Dutch guilder. How is it now?" Sachem, director of the Dutch Financial Committee and chairman of the Dutch Federal Reserve, said, "In the past few months, we have made great progress in improving the international status of the Dutch guilder. For example, the foreign currency currently used by the Netherlands' allies in Latin America is the Dutch guilder. Compared with the British pound, the Dutch guilder has a better credit. Even in the United States of America and Brazil, the Dutch guilder now has almost the same status as the British pound. In Europe, the trade of the pound has declined, and the trade between the Netherlands and them has increased, and the Dutch guilder has also risen. In the Russian Empire, Greece and Spain, the Dutch guilder has also become the first foreign currency used. William Ivey, please give us more details on the use of foreign currencies by the Dutch guilder." Sachem, since the beginning of last year, the exchange rate of the pound has been falling. About a year ago in January 1880, the exchange rate of £1 was still 1.25. In January of this year, £1 to 1 Dutch guilder became 1.15. At the end of September last month, the exchange rate of the pound to the Dutch guilder became 1.10. William Ivey said with satisfaction, "The exchange rate has more than doubled." Sachem nodded and said, "Currently the value of the British pound is falling rapidly. On the contrary, the Dutch guilder has increased because more and more countries use the Dutch guilder in our global trade, and as the value of the imported Dutch guilder increases, the value of the British pound has depreciated in disguise, and the storage value of the Dutch guilder has increased." William IV saw that the Minister of Industry next to him, Joseph Lunka, frowned and said nothing, so he said, "What is the Ministry of Industry worried about?" Seeing William IV's inquiring eyes, Joseph Lunka said, "At present, due to the increase in the exchange rate of the Dutch guilder compared to the British pound, the British pound has depreciated, increasing the competitiveness of exports to the UK. On the contrary, as the Dutch guilder appreciates, the competitiveness of Dutch industrial products has decreased." William IV pursed his lips at Sachem, and then said, "If you have any problems, go to him." Senator Sachem smiled bitterly when he heard it. However, facing Joseph Lunka's pleading eyes, Sachem could only speak, "Has the current trend of increasing exports of Dutch industrial products weakened?" Joseph Lunka paused, shook his head and said, "No, Senator Sachem. In the competition between us and the United Kingdom for foreign industrial product exports, has the United Kingdom reversed it?" Joseph Lunka said seriously, "No, Senator Sachem. Germany and the United States have an advantage over us in exporting industrial products." Joseph Lunka, "The Netherlands remains the world's largest exporting country." Sachem smiled and said, "This is the result of the hard work of all our colleagues at the Dutch Federal Reserve and the Dutch Financial Committee." He turned to William IV and said, "Your Majesty, every time our Dutch Federal Reserve and the Financial Committee promote an increase in the Dutch guilder exchange rate, we will refer to the Dutch industrial product export data for a gradual increase. The entire process has been approved by all members of the Dutch Federal Reserve's Advisory Committee and carried out with the support of the Financial Committee." Hearing this, Industry Minister Joseph Lunka breathed a sigh of relief. If the Dutch Federal Reserve does this, the value of Dutch industrial products will increase. It will not affect export competitiveness, but it will be more beneficial to exporters. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Geldanadang nodded and said, "Currently, the Ministry of Finance has obtained information that importers are also very satisfied with the increase in the Dutch guilder, because the increase in exchange rates against other currencies allows importers to make greater profits." Chapter 990, Which Party is Strongest in External Infiltration? William IV then slowly said, "In fact, what Congressman Sachem said is not detailed enough. Now, I will popularize the impact of exchange rates on imports and exports." Sachem naturally did not dare to object, and his ears stood up, which showed that he was listening attentively. Seeing this, others knew that Sachem, the world's top financial expert, obviously agreed with the professionalism of William IV's next speech. William IV said, "Generally speaking, if the exchange rate of the Dutch guilder falls, that is, the value of the Dutch guilder against foreign currencies depreciates, it can promote exports and suppress imports. However, if the exchange rate of the Dutch guilder rises, that is, the value of the Dutch guilder against foreign currencies rises, it will be beneficial to imports and detrimental to exports. Of course, the impact of exchange rate changes on imports and exports must be accompanied by an accompanying condition, that is, the demand for imports and exports is price elastic, and changes in the prices of imported and exported goods will have an impact on the demand for imports and exports. If the demand for imports and exports is sensitive to changes in exchange rates and commodity prices, and the demand elasticity is large, then a country's exchange rate decline and a corresponding reduction in export prices can effectively suppress the demand for imported goods, thereby reducing the amount of imports. Simply put, if the sum of the elasticity of demand for export goods and the elasticity of demand for import goods is greater than 1, then a decline in the exchange rate can improve a country's trade balance. As for export goods, there is also a problem of export supply elasticity, that is, whether the volume of export goods can increase after the exchange rate falls, which is also subject to the degree of possible expansion of supply. Seeing that these people were listening carefully, William IV was very satisfied. Although the words he just said could be easily found on the internet, they were the golden words of the financial world in the 19th century, more than 100 years ago. Therefore, what William IV said became the learning content of the 20 Privy Council members present. In real life, the effect of exchange rates on imports and exports is mainly achieved through competition in the international market. For example, when a country's currency's domestic purchasing power remains unchanged but its exchange rate falls, the country's exporters can obtain extra profits from the depreciation of the exchange rate. The extra profits provide the possibility of lowering the prices of exports in foreign markets, which increases competitiveness in the international market and may expand their market share and increase exports. However, This is also based on the condition that competitors have not taken or have not had time to take countermeasures. When competitors retaliate by devaluing their own currency exchange rates, the competitive advantage no longer exists. After waiting for 30 seconds in the conference room, everyone put down their pens for taking notes, and then looked up at William IV excitedly, especially those who were not members of the Dutch Federal Reserve. Obviously, this was their first time to come into contact with financial professional knowledge, especially since William IV had just spoken so clearly. The Minister of Industry also benefited a lot. He suddenly asked at this time, "Your Majesty, what if Britain or other countries strengthen or lower the currency of their own currency to enhance the competitiveness of their internal industrial products or external exports?" "This worry is correct," said William IV. "When the Netherlands faces such opponents, it needs to prescribe the right medicine. For example, for opponents like Britain and Germany whose industrial products can compete with us overseas, we need to use a wider range of currency than the other side to hit the other side's global usage share, and then use the advantage of the Dutch guilder to expand local interest groups and link them with the rise and fall of the Dutch guilder. It doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, the one that catches the mouse is a good cat. Our goal is to strike the opponent in one country. As for the market competition in the country where we are located, we can suppress the principle of half alliance and half alliance, and use commercial interests to match the other government and interest groups to implement policies that are in our interests." William IV suddenly changed the subject and said, "Prime Minister Linden, leader of the Christian Party, the largest party in the ruling coalition, Deputy Prime Minister Jules, leader of the Socialist Party, the second largest party in the ruling coalition, Gerrit, leader of the opposition Liberal Party. In fact, on this point, I would rather see the top 3 political parties in the Netherlands work together and form alliances in various factions in various countries. I hope to see you form such alliances in these countries. Anyway, winning or losing is just changing a faction for the Netherlands. In other words, the party that you ally with will come to power, and the party that you bet on will take the opportunity to exert influence in this country." William IV said coldly, "At present, your 3 parties are doing well in the United States, but there are also shortcomings. The Liberal Party has a good relationship with the Republican Party, which is why the Liberal Party has been able to maintain an alliance with Washington during the 16 years of its rule. In addition, the relationship between the Netherlands and the Federal Republic of America is neither good nor bad, and even worse. The relationship between the Christian Party Socialist Party alliance and the Democratic Party is not as good as that between the Liberal Party and the Republican Party. In this regard, the Christian Party Socialist Party ruling coalition can make improvements. Of course, part of the reason is also due to the anti-Dutch sentiment after the Democratic Party Stephen came to power, and it is not entirely the fault of the Christian Party Socialist Party coalition. The Christian Party Socialist Party ruling coalition also has good points, that is, on the issue of Latin America, it has done a good job of allowing the Netherlands to infiltrate various countries. If the 3 parties expand their influence or cooperation partners to major European and American countries, especially the north and south of France and Europe and the north and south of the United States, for example, the Socialist Party is now closely related to the Confederate States of America, which split from the United States, and uses this to bargain with Washington in the north, it has done a good job. Also, the Socialist Party has contacted Thiers in the French Third Republic, which split from the rule of Napoleon III in Paris, and let the Dutch arms dealers begin to become suppliers of the country's Ministry of Defense, which made Napoleon III in Paris very angry recently, and he began to adopt a conciliatory policy towards the Netherlands and did not dare to lean too much towards Britain. William IV's public praise for the Socialist Party's second-in-command, Foreign Minister Joseph Beit, once again made other members of the 2 parties feel strange. Obviously, the Socialist Party's foreign policy scored high. But other departments did not get recognition from William IV. In contrast, this makes it more likely that the royal family will support the Socialist Party's election in the Dutch general election next year. Linden and Gerrit looked at each other again, and saw the vigilance in each other's eyes. William IV's provocation was enough, and he knew that too much was as bad as too little. He knew that next year's election would be more intense than ever. Would the Socialist Party break away from the Christian Party and run independently? Would the Christian Party join forces with the Liberal Party to block the Socialist Party? These were all big dramas. As for the fear of internal chaos in the Netherlands, hey, today's meeting was to set the rules, wasn't it? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 991. The Pound Has Fallen. When the Privy Council meeting was held in the Netherlands, the British Treasury was also panicked about the recent continuous depreciation of the pound. Even Prime Minister Gladstone was very distressed about this. Since the 18th century, Britain had 4 naval battles with the Netherlands, especially the third one, which ended in a tie. In the fourth battle, Britain defeated the Netherlands. Amsterdam, the tulip financial capital, was replaced by London. Since then, London has been the most powerful financial capital in the world for hundreds of years. Even the rising New York and the old rival Paris in France cannot compare with London. The rise of the pound followed a British steam revolution. Industrial products accounted for more than 40% of the world's share, which established Britain as the world's most influential currency power, and Britain's global hegemony was further blessed. Britain attaches great importance to its financial status, and the pound is the strongest currency in the world, comparable to gold. However, as the Netherlands rose too fast in the 1860s, Britain's diplomatic failure caused the export of British industrial products to suffer. The Netherlands began to catch up in the early 1870s. Even Britain's most proud military industry could not escape and was surpassed by the Netherlands in 1876. Sitting in front of Green Leighton were the most important members of the British cabinet: Foreign Minister Greville, Finance Minister Sir William Vernon Harcourt, and Minister of Commerce and Industry Robert Lowe. Minister of Commerce and Industry Robert Lowe frowned and said, "In the past 10 years, the share of British exports has dropped from 40% to 20% now, and it has dropped by 50%, a drop of 20 percentage points. On the contrary, the Netherlands has risen from 18% in 1870 to 35% now, nearly one-third of the global share of exports, an increase of 17%, almost doubling. Although the south of the United States of America has become independent, it has increased from 7% in 1870 to 12% now, almost doubling. The German Empire has increased by 10 points from 7% in 1870 to 15% of the global share. The above rankings show that the Netherlands, Britain, Germany, and the United States account for 75% of the global cross-border trade, accounting for 3/4 of the world. They are the top 4 trading and industrial powers in the world. Mr. Prime Minister, the Netherlands' foreign trade is getting stronger and stronger. It has not only squeezed our market share, but also suppressed our competitiveness in many European countries. If it is not stopped, Britain may lose its position as the world's second-largest industrial power. In just 10 years, Britain has gone from being the world's first industrial power to the second-largest industrial power. It is unbelievable." Robert Lowe's words ignited a feeling of grief in the hearts of several people present. The finance minister next to him, Sir William Vernon Harcourt, was also worried. "Yes, the Dutch industrial strength is too strong. Their 3 major consortiums are the best in the world in terms of capital and financial strength, as well as industrial patent strength. In a country with a lot of money, it is a blessing to have such a consortium. Even in the UK, because the wealth is too concentrated in the hands of the nobles, there are too many restrictions on capital operation, and it is difficult to use it as flexibly as one's own arms. Look at the new patents issued by the Royal Netherlands Academy of Sciences every year, which is the best embodiment of industrial strength. Alice, our industrial innovation lags far behind the Netherlands, making it difficult to compete with the other side in foreign trade. As my country's foreign trade shrinks, the position of the pound in the world has weakened, especially in the past 2 years. The pound has been falling against the Dutch guilder, franc, US dollar, kroner, etc. About 3 years ago, the exchange rate of £1 was 1.25, but now it has become 1.10. Many people in London predict that by the end of next year, the pound may fall to 1.8 against the Dutch guilder. Many people even predict that by 1890, the price of the pound to the Dutch guilder may only be 1.5, a new low since the pound and the Dutch guilder can be exchanged. Gladstone was even more upset. Behind the depreciation of the pound against the Dutch guilder was a thrilling power game. On January 1, 1880, the Netherlands started to launch the global allied exchange rate of the Dutch guilder, making the Dutch guilder the first choice for all Dutch allies to exchange foreign currencies, surpassing the number of countries with the largest global use of the pound. In March of the same year, the Dutch guilder officially carried out global currency transactions. On the same day, the exchange rate of the pound against the Dutch guilder in the Sydney and Amsterdam foreign exchange markets increased from 125 to 115. By the end of September this year, the pound against the Dutch guilder once reached 110, the lowest point of the pound against the Dutch guilder. With the increase in the global circulation of the Dutch guilder, the depreciation of the pound against the Dutch guilder has become inevitable, and the strengthening of the Dutch guilder against the pound is also a trend. Foreign Minister Greville said at this time, "Now that the Latin American war has started, it has affected the basic base of the Netherlands allies. The Netherlands has 12 allies there, and the United States in the north is close to the Netherlands. If the war continues to expand in the Americas, the Dutch economy will inevitably be affected. You must know that the Netherlands has implemented different traditional economic colonization in those countries, and the practice of the Netherlands stationing troops there has made the Netherlands fall into South America and cannot extricate themselves. And this is the biggest opportunity for us in Britain to deal with the Netherlands in Asia, Europe and Africa. Prime Minister, I think the most important thing Britain should do now is to support the Austro-Hungarian Empire, so that it can consume the strength of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and at the same time, it can also drag Germany, which has just established a German-Austrian alliance, into the water, and also remove the threat of this emerging European power and the world's third industrial power. After all, Berlin's current foreign trade is only 2 percentage points lower than ours. As long as Latin America, where the most important circle of the Netherlands' allies is concentrated, is messed up, then the Netherlands will be in disarray, and at the same time, Germany, a shark-like ruthless character, will enter the game we set up." Chancellor of the Exchequer Sir William Vernon Harcourt nodded, then sighed. At present, due to the decline in foreign trade in the UK, the national unemployment rate has increased to more than 10%. Such low national employment will cause large-scale protests. Currently, more than 5 million people in the UK are dissatisfied with their government's employment policy, so quickly diverting domestic conflicts will become our best tool. Of course, the other thing is to do practical things, to mess up the emerging industrial countries such as the Netherlands and Germany, and then take their jobs back to the British Isles. Finally, Greville said, "The global diplomacy of the Netherlands is the biggest obstacle to the development of the UK's industrial and military economy, because these countries are quickly making up for the disadvantage that the Netherlands has a population nearly 10 million less than that of the UK, and continuously sending top talents to the Netherlands, and the labor force has also increased a lot. It has become a gathering place for talents on both sides of the Pacific Rim. This is the biggest threat facing Britain. If the Irish and Scottish fully support our rule, then we can rule in the United States. Unfortunately, the Irish still can't forget the hatred of us starving to death millions of Irish in 1800 and strongly suppressing Scotland's opposition to English rule. Instead, they have developed into the most anti-British force in America." Quotation mark. Chapter 992 Global Wealth Harvester. UK, 10 Downing Street, Prime Minister's Office. October 10, 1881. Sitting in front of Prime Minister Green-Leeton are the most important members of the British Cabinet: Foreign Secretary Greville, Chancellor of the Exchequer Sir William Vernon Harcourt, and Minister of Commerce and Industry Robert Lowe. British Chancellor of the Exchequer Sir William Vernon Harcourt, the current employment crisis in the UK has triggered a debt crisis for many British consortiums. The pound-sterling exchange rate has fallen and has been falling all the way. Now the pound sterling to Dutch guilder has fallen from the highest peak of 125 to 110. If the third country remains unchanged, the pound sterling assets have actually depreciated by more than 60% in disguise, while the Dutch guilder assets have risen by so much. The recent appreciation of the pound is mainly affected by the strengthening trend of the Dutch guilder. On the surface, this is an economic phenomenon. Faced with a severe situation of inflation in the UK, too much inventory to sell, the Netherlands added insult to injury and the Dutch Federal Reserve launched the most violent interest rate hike in nearly 20 years, raising interest rates by 90, 60 and 80 basis points in June 1880, December this year and June this year, 1,881, respectively. As a result, our pound rose with the CPI in the same month, so that inflation rose to 15% this month, setting the largest increase and maximum inflation in the UK's steam industrial revolution for hundreds of years, thus creating a nearly 20% unemployment rate in society. Now in October 1881, According to the Dutch Federal Reserve's habit of raising interest rates every 6 months, we have reason to worry that the Netherlands will continue to raise interest rates in December 1881, 2 months later. Many people even expect that the Dutch Federal Reserve has a 60% chance of raising interest rates by 100 basis points. In addition, the Dutch Ministry of the Interior and Labor Bureau recently announced that the Dutch unemployment rate remained at a low level of 3.5 in September, and employment data rose. Combined with the rapid and intensive pace of interest rate hikes, the Dutch market siphoned global safe haven capital. The actions of the Dutch Federal Reserve have allowed the Kingdom of the Netherlands to reap global wealth as it wished. London, New York and even Berlin have become the main targets of wealth grabbing by Sydney, Amsterdam and Melbourne in the Netherlands. In fact, the Netherlands is well aware that violent interest rate hikes will lead to a global economic recession. Although the Netherlands knew it well, in order to save itself and expand its advantages in the financial and job markets, it even reaped the losses of its own allies, such as the Nordic countries of Sweden, Denmark and Spain. However, since the exchange rate of the Dutch guilder within these three countries remained stable, they were not seriously hurt. However, the United States of America was the most miserable, because the exchange rate between the Dutch guilder and the US dollar was the freest in the world, and the Dutch guilder was even used directly by the people there. This caused those who held US dollars in the United States of America to suffer huge losses, while those who held Dutch guilder cash made a fortune. As a result, the Dutch guilder became the target of foreign currency snatching in the United States, while the US dollar seemed to become the object of people's dislike, just like the British pound, because they both depreciated against the Dutch guilder, and holding the Dutch guilder was more profitable than holding gold. Sir Harcourt said this and reiterated, "The strength of the Dutch guilder has now begun to accelerate in countries around the world, just like the United States. Even in our Britain, many people are increasing their holdings openly or secretly. So, Prime Minister, the attractiveness of the Dutch guilder has increased, and the continued depreciation of the British pound is inevitable. We need to make plans as soon as possible." Gladstone looked at the Minister of Commerce and Industry Robert Lowe next to him, who said, "Economically speaking, the economic performance of the areas where the British pound is used is weak." The World Economic Cooperation Organization, headquartered in Sydney, the Netherlands, has lowered its forecast for the actual GDP growth rate in the United Kingdom, Belgium, and Portugal in 1881 to -2.5%, -0.1%, and -0.5%, respectively, and at the same time raised the inflation rate of these three countries this year to 15%, 7.6%, and 5%. The world's most prestigious economic organization showed three authoritative indicators. The Economic Prosperity Index and Employment Index of these three countries both declined, while the economic uncertainty rose to 24.8, 19.5 and 14.6. The inflation of the three countries where the pound is most commonly used is almost the highest in the world, especially the 15% inflation in the UK, which is far more than 4 times the 3% warning line preset by the OECD. At present, the British government cannot follow the example of the Netherlands in violently raising interest rates, because the pound, Portugal and Belgium are generally in high debt, especially in terms of national debt. The UK is the country with the highest debt in the world. Violent interest rate hikes are equivalent to cutting their throats to save themselves, which is useless. You must know that even Portugal's national debt is 150% of GDP. Our domestic fiscal deficit has been increasing year after year, and the UK's military expenditure has continued to rise. More than half of our national debt is issued and controlled by the Rothschild family. Let's not talk about whether the Rothschild family will take over. Even if they do, our debt will be even higher, and we will be more dependent on the support of the Rothschild family. I don't recommend raising interest rates. That would be too dangerous for us in the UK. Once the interest rate is raised, it is very likely that the British sovereign debt will default, and the country will go bankrupt and face great turmoil. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sir Harcourt, said at this time, "This statement is not bad, but it is wrong to explain the weakening of the pound against the Dutch guilder entirely with economic data. I think that the global OECD controlled by the Netherlands says that the exchange rate is determined by the market, but the exchange rate has always reflected a country's economic development prospects and macro control capabilities. At present, the krona dominated by Germany and Austria-Hungary is just a tool. Its primary goal is to achieve the political and economic integration of the German-Austrian alliance. The ultimate goal is to make the German-Austrian alliance rise and become a strong third currency in the pluralistic world in the era of the British pound and the Dutch guilder with global influence. The British pound is the main obstacle for the Dutch guilder to harvest the world. The franc, kroner and dollar are also, but the threat is not great. Now the British pound is the second largest currency in the world, and the other two are the third, fourth and fifth currencies. Therefore, it is almost inevitable that the British pound will face suppression from the Netherlands. At present, the Netherlands is promoting various alliances around the world. The Netherlands says that it is to establish security values, but in fact it is the Netherlands that has established a most favorable international environment for the promotion of the Dutch guilder. Look at the appreciation of the Dutch guilder and the depreciation of the British pound in the past few years after the establishment of the Dutch multiple alliances. The domestic dollar in the United States can barely suppress the use of the Dutch guilder. In other northern European countries such as Sweden, Denmark and southern European Greece, the Dutch guilder is the second largest currency. In some Latin American countries such as Ecuador, Chile, Bolivia and Peru, the Dutch guilder even exceeds the scope of application of the local currency and becomes the de facto first currency. Today's Austro-Hungarian and Mexican wars are actually similar. The biggest winner of the Austro-Mexican War so far is undoubtedly the Netherlands. First, 2 weeks before the expansion and escalation of the Austro-Mexican War, high-end Mexicans immigrated to the Dutch-Australian continent and transferred their wealth to the Netherlands to avoid suspicion. Chapter 993, Belgium's Returning Dragon. 1881. The democratic government of the United States of America under President Stephen continued its anti-Dutch policy and took punitive measures against the Qing dynasty's diplomatic preference for the Netherlands. The Washington Congress passed the Anti-Qing and Anti-Qing Act, which strictly restricted Qing laborers in terms of immigration. On October 3, 1881, a reporter from Shanghai, where the foreign concessions in the southeast of Qing dynasty were located, sent a news telegram from Zili to Shanghai, which became the first news telegram in Qing dynasty. On October 6, 1881, the Dutch East India Company opened a manual telephone exchange in Shanghai. On October 8, 1881, the Netherlands opened the Sydney Wildlife Park in the Far East, becoming the earliest wildlife park in the Far East. On October 9, 1881, the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Guerilla signed the unequal treaty Guerilla-Netherlands Treaty of Amity, and the Netherlands became the second protectorate of the Kingdom of Guerilla in addition to the Qing dynasty. On October 10, 1881, the Privy Council continued to meet in Melbourne, Australia. Second, Mexico purchased a large number of Dutch weapons, completely replacing the old weapons provided by the United States and other countries. Third, the Netherlands forced Mexico to choose the Netherlands as its most important ally between the Netherlands and the United States, and used the 13-nation alliance to completely lock Mexico's possibility of seeking help from the United States, Brazil, Britain and other countries, perfectly strangling the possibility of the US dollar and other European currencies such as the British pound to expand in Mexico. Fourth, at the same time, Mexico's military and politics are open to the Netherlands, and the Netherlands can infiltrate this country more thoroughly and openly. Fifth, Dutch industry is highly dependent on resources and markets. Now Mexico has become the back garden of Dutch capital, and Mexico has become a member of the raw material supply chain of Dutch industry. Stabilizing the Netherlands in the global supply chain and market will be more structural and long-term. Sixth, it will contribute to the exchange rate prospects of the Dutch guilder. Seventh, Latin American countries and other countries around the world will compete to ask the Netherlands to provide security protection because of their leading role. Finally, there are two camps, one optimistic and the other pessimistic, about the prospect of the pound exchange rate. I think both have some truth, but if we analyze it from the geopolitical perspective, we in the Netherlands will naturally not be happy to see a strong and independent Europe that is friendly with the UK, so the Netherlands will not see the kroner and the US dollar franc becoming stronger to challenge the status of the Dutch guilder and the pound. Therefore, the weakening of the pound against the Dutch guilder is not only an economic problem, but also a political problem. However, the main reason for the weakening of the pound in the future is still the lack of comprehensive strength of the British economic and political strength. Now the share of the pound in the foreign exchange reserves and foreign exchange trading market of various countries has been declining since 1876. At present, the OECD has specially noted that the Dutch guilder is suitable for buying, and the pound is bearish. Obviously, This organization is also helping the Netherlands to increase the foreign exchange reserves of other countries and the weight of the currencies stored by various countries. Among them, the Dutch guilder and the German kroner have increased, the US dollar has been on par, and the weight of the pound and the franc has been reduced, becoming a weather vane. The person who just spoke was Senator Sekhem, the director of the Dutch Financial Committee and the chairman of the Dutch Federal Reserve. William IV. Sekhem Engels, you contact the Rothschilds. I hope the Rothschilds will secretly assist the Dutch guilder in becoming a global reserve currency as soon as possible. Everyone was excited when they heard this. The Rothschilds are the most powerful financial forces in the financial circles of the 5 major European powers, such as Britain, the German Empire, the French North and South regimes, Italy, Austria-Hungary, etc., which are comparable to the central bank of a country's finance ministry. If this family supports it, the chances of the Dutch guilder's global reserve currency plan being completed will be much higher. William IV said to Murray Philip next to him, "What is the current level of education and higher education in our country?" Everyone straightened up when they heard this. Even Prime Minister Linden and Deputy Prime Minister Jules Darneton were no exception. Minister of Transport Murray Philippe has a very big background. He is of Belgian-Dutch descent. In 1871, he took the lead with Jules Darneton, who was then the Prime Minister of Belgium, and Beth, the Speaker of the Belgian Parliament, to return several provinces in northern Belgium to the Netherlands. What more people know is that Murray Philippe has always been called the kingmaker in Belgium. He brought out 2 prime ministers, including Jules Darneton, and 3 mayors of Belgian provinces. It took him only 15 years in total, which means that on average he brought out a high-ranking official with the status of a Belgian prince every 3 years. Now Murray Philippe is the whip of the Socialist Party in the upper house. His position in the party is second only to the party leader Jules Darneton and the party chairman Joseph Beit, and is ahead of the whip and energy minister of the lower house Hester. Currently Murray Philippe serves as the Minister of Education in the Christian Party Socialist Party coalition cabinet. Facing such a legendary figure in Belgian politics, even Linden needs to give enough respect. Of course, Gerrit de Vries stared at him frequently, because the last time the Christian Party and the Socialist Party formed a coalition government, it was this guy in front of him who came up with a plan. It can be said that this is the most dangerous person in the Socialist Party. This is the consensus of everyone in the entire opposition Liberal Party. At the beginning, many people did not understand why such a person. In 1879, when the coalition cabinet was formed, he chose to become the Minister of Education of the Netherlands, a position with a low status among the cabinet members. However, as the new Dutch cabinet implemented various education policies in the past 3 years, many members of the Socialist Party actually devoted themselves to the education cause, which successfully integrated the Socialist Party into the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The Liberal Party and the Christian Party realized it later. The Socialist Party was established on the basis of the population of 3 million in the 6 provinces of Belgium that returned to the Netherlands in 1870. Originally, the Socialist Party was only influential in the Netherlands and Europe, but with the migration of the Netherlands to the Far East, it actually gave the Socialist Party a golden opportunity. In order to quickly integrate into all aspects of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the Socialist Party began to join the Labor Union and the Women's Union, and had more contact with the workers at the bottom of society. At the same time, these elements were also added to the party constitution. In particular, more than 40% of overseas white immigrants from Europe and the United States chose to join the Socialist Party. It should be noted that there are more than 7 million European and American immigrants and their descendants, accounting for nearly a quarter of the white people in the Netherlands, that is, 2.1 million people, plus the 3 million people who returned from Belgium to the Netherlands. Nearly 5.1 million are the basic base of the Socialist Party, accounting for nearly 1/5 of the total white population in the Netherlands. The reason why so many immigrants and white people from other ethnic groups were quickly won over is the credit of the Socialist Party, who returned from Belgium in the Ministry of Education in recent years. If Murray Philippe or the next government continues to be a socialist in charge of the Ministry of Education, then the education sector, including this government, will still be the Socialist Party that cultivates talents in the next 5 years. Many people speculate that Murray Philippe's role in the successful integration of the Socialist Party into the Netherlands and becoming the 3rd largest party is absolutely crucial. It may even be the key. Chapter 994, The Netherlands tops the World University Rankings 1881. William IV, Prime Minister Theo van Linden, Chief Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Jules Darnaton, Foreign Minister Joseph Byte, Interior Minister David Blank, Defense Minister Fox, Industry Minister Joseph Lunka, Transport Minister Byers, Education Minister Murray Philip, Energy Minister Hester, Chief Justice Robert Cook, Privy Council President and Speaker of the House of Commons Baron Caslin, Lord Chancellor and Speaker of the House of Lords Marcus Andrew Smith, Director of the Dutch Financial Committee and President of the Dutch Federal Reserve Senator Saxum, etc. continued to hold Privy Council meetings. Education Minister Murray Philip became the latest person to be named by William IV, and the question was about the latest situation of higher education in the Netherlands. Murray Philip said calmly, "This year is the 20th anniversary of the release of the World University Rankings. It was originally released in the first half of the year, but starting this year, it is scheduled to be released in October every year. The answer to Your Majesty's question is on the new list that will be released on October 15th. I believe that with the appearance of the latest list, it will make everyone in the Netherlands proud and make the whole of Britain change color." William IV asked inquiringly, "Why?" Others have not seen this issue of the list, so they also showed curiosity. Murray Philip said, "Because on the new list, the British universities that dominate the global university list will overturn the history of British universities occupying the top spot on this year's issue. Instead, our Dutch universities have successfully challenged the top spot and broke the status of Dutch universities that can only be the second in the past 19 years. William IV heard this and said happily, "Then I am even more curious." Philip didn't say much nonsense and distributed a stack of papers that had been prepared long ago to everyone present. The 1881 Global University Ranking List was listed prominently. William IV was the most curious and excited person among the people present. In his previous life, universities in his motherland often failed to enter the top 10 in the Western university rankings. Even in Asia, there were occasionally one or two universities that entered one period, but they were not on the next period. This was formed under the global higher education monopoly of Britain and the United States. The purpose was to gather high-end talents from all over the world to their own country, and then increase efforts to weaken others and strengthen themselves. Even if these talents were not used for themselves, they would be destroyed. Let them exist as mediocre people in their own country, instead of going back to build their own motherland. In his previous life, he was very helpless about this. In fact, he also understood the helplessness of the country. After all, his motherland was a new participant in many science and technology industries. The industry standards and information were incomplete, and it was necessary to borrow the experience of other countries. International students were the most direct and effective bridge. If they were not sent out, there would be no opportunity to contact foreign technology. It would be difficult to achieve the effect of integrating other people's advanced technology by closing the door and building cars. The 9 sons of a dragon are different, not to mention that international students are also mixed. Between patriotism and unpatriotism, or not contributing to the high salary of foreign countries, there are always a few people who choose a more selfish choice. Influenced by this, the Dutch who came to this parallel world and became the Crown Prince began to reform the higher education in the Netherlands. In just 10 years, the Netherlands became the world's second largest higher education power in the 1860s. Even in terms of higher education per capita, the Netherlands is the strongest in the world. However, the United Kingdom, which has Oxford and Cambridge, still firmly occupies 2 of the top 5 places, and even the first place is Oxford or Cambridge University in the United Kingdom. But now, after 20 years of development, the universities in the Netherlands have finally topped the list. The following is the latest list of global university rankings in 1881, top 10. First 10th. 1 University of Sydney, Netherlands, founded in 1850, the same below. 2 University of Melbourne, Netherlands, 1853, 3 University of Cambridge, UK, 1209, 4 University of Oxford, UK, 1096, 5 University of Amsterdam, Netherlands, 1857, 6 Humboldt University of Berlin, Germany, 1810, 7 University of Vienna, Austria-Hungary, 1365, 8 University of St. Petersburg, Tsarist Russia, 1724, 9 University of Paris, Second French Empire, 1150, 10 Australian National University, Netherlands, 1864. The Netherlands occupies 4 seats in the top 10, namely 1st University of Sydney, 2nd University of Melbourne, 5th Amsterdam, the former capital of the Netherlands in Europe, and 10th Australian National University located in the province of Wilhelm. Victoria, of the Netherlands, the United Kingdom occupies 2 seats, namely 3rd University of Cambridge and 4th University of Oxford. It can be said that in the latest university rankings, the Netherlands crushed the UK and successfully topped the list. In particular, the University of London, which ranked 10th in the previous issue, was successfully replaced by the Australian National University, breaking the balance of the Netherlands and the UK each having 3 seats in the top 10. Everyone present believes that this issue will shock the world when it is released in 5 days, and its influence is not less than that of the University of Sydney topping the global rankings. In this issue, Humboldt University of Berlin is still ranked 6th as in previous years. This has been the same position for the past 10 years. The University of Vienna and the University of St. Petersburg have driven the University of Paris from the 7th to the 9th place. They have both moved up 1 place to reduce the status of the University of Paris. Sure enough, politics can determine many things. The division of France has reduced the enrollment scope of the University of Paris by nearly 1/3. The division of the French Third Republic in the south has only allowed the enrollment of students in the French Second Empire in the north. Therefore, the decline in status is understandable. This is the reason why the University of Paris is helpless. However, it must be said that it is worthy of being a powerful country, and even its university education is the top in the world. This issue of the university rankings has been released. Needless to say, the universities listed above will be the most desirable places for international students from other countries around the world. It is conceivable that these 4 universities in the Netherlands will definitely add new impetus for other top talents to immigrate to the Netherlands. These are most in line with William IV.'s ideas and plans. However, these plans and ideas that conform to William IV. may not necessarily conform to the ideas of others. For example, the current Prime Minister Linden of the Christian Party and Jules Donaton of the Socialist Party and Gerrit de Vries of the opposition Liberal Party. Especially the former and the latter Gerrit de Vries. The University of Melbourne, ranked 2nd, is located in the capital Melbourne, and is now ruled by the Christian Party. The University of Sydney, ranked 1st on the list, is located in New South Wales, and is also ruled by the Christian Party. The Australian National University, ranked 10th, is located in William Province, Victoria, where the Socialist Party began to govern in 1879. By this calculation, only the University of Amsterdam, which ranks 5th in Europe, is still in the hands of the Liberal Party. Therefore, it would be strange for Gerrit de Vries to be happy. He was very dissatisfied that there were no top universities in the Far East in the hands of the Liberal Party. Therefore, he was anxious and hoped that there would be more universities in the areas governed by the Liberal Party. So he hurriedly looked down. Chapter 995, The Netherlands tops the global university rankings 1881. On the afternoon of October 10, 1881, the British Prime Minister's office announced that the government decided to cancel all large-scale events in response to the continued spread of riots. British Prime Minister Gladstone said on the same day that he would take all measures to maintain the national order of the British Empire. The British Prime Minister's office held a joint media meeting that afternoon and announced that according to local conditions, large-scale events that may pose a risk to public order would be cancelled, and a large exhibition originally planned to be held at the British Museum in London had been cancelled. The unemployment rate in the UK has continued to rise since August, which has caused large-scale protests by workers across the UK. Gladstone recently had to spend an hour every day to listen to briefings on protests to prevent uncontrollable situations. A few days ago, he went to Ireland to attend a local administrative meeting, but because of the demonstrations of nearly 500,000 people in London, he had to leave and return to London to preside over a meeting on responding to the national riot crisis. At the meeting, Gladstone emphasized that he firmly opposed violence. The current situation in the UK is unacceptable, and he will take all measures to maintain order in the UK. At the same time, a spokesman for the Prime Minister's office at 10 Downing Street announced that more armed guards would be deployed on the streets to strengthen vigilance. In an interview with the media, he said that the government is considering all possible options, including the implementation of a state of emergency, to ensure the restoration of Britain's prosperity rather than fueling riots. In addition, British Home Secretary Darmanin has required that horse-drawn carriages, bicycles, motorcycles, Cars and trams on all roads in the UK be stopped from November 1st, 1881 to 1700 hours in the afternoon. Although the British Gladstone cabinet government deployed more than 50,000 police and guards across the country to maintain law and order, in the latest week from October 2nd to October 8th, 1881, there were still a large number of serious riots every day, especially in the evening, when city halls in various regions were smashed. The British police announced that a total of 12,075 people were arrested in this week, including 3,807 in London, but 538 police and guards were injured in maintaining law and order. The riots in the UK continue, showing that the former glory of the British Empire is no longer there, while the peaceful Netherlands continues to develop and prosper. The two are clearly different. Kingdom of the Netherlands, Far East, Melbourne. The Privy Council meeting chaired by William Ivey continues. Gerrit de Vries of the opposition Liberal Party continues to look at the 11th to 20th rankings of the new global university rankings. The top 11 to 20 rankings are 11 University of London, UK, founded in 1836, 12 University of The Hague, Netherlands, 1858, 13 University of Madrid, Spain, 1499, 14 University of Munich, Germany, 1472, 15 Harvard University, USA, 1636, 16 University of Edinburgh, UK, 1583, 17 University of Adelaide, Netherlands, 1864, 18 University of Lyon, 3rd French Republic, 1456, 19 University of Western Australia, Netherlands, 1864, 20 Moscow State University, Tsarist Russia, 1755. Among these 10 universities, the Kingdom of the Netherlands occupies 3, namely, the University of The Hague in European territory, 12th, the University of Adelaide in South Australia, 17th, and the University of Western Australia, 19th. The United Kingdom has 2 universities, the University of London, ranked 11th, and the University of Edinburgh, ranked 16th. The University of Madrid in Spain, the University of Munich in Germany, Harvard University in the United States, the University of Lyon in the Terror regime in southern France, and the Moscow State University in the Russian Empire occupied the remaining 5 places respectively. When everyone in the Privy Council saw this, they knew very well that the Netherlands currently occupied 7 seats, the United Kingdom occupied 4 seats, and the remaining 4 countries, including the German Empire, the Russian Empire, and the 2 regimes in the north and south of France, each had 2 seats, occupying a total of 19 seats. The remaining 2 seats were occupied by the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the United States of America, each occupying 1 seat. In the global university rankings, the Netherlands has begun to lead the United Kingdom in both quantity and quality. If the Netherlands continues to maintain its position in the 2130 sequence, then the universities in the Netherlands will establish a dominant position in one fell swoop. So everyone continue to read the 3rd paragraph with excitement, because every 10 rankings are a paragraph, which is clear. The rankings from 21 to 30 are 21 University of New South Wales, Netherlands, founded in 1864, 22 University of Rotterdam, Netherlands, Europe, 1858, 23 University of Austria, Austria-Hungary 1302, 24 University of Rome, Italy, 1303, 25 University of Bonn, Germany, 1786, 26 Columbia University, USA, 1754, 27 University of Copenhagen, Denmark, 1479, 28 University of St. Andrews, UK, 1441, 29 University of Queensland, Netherlands, 1864, 30 University of Manchester, UK, 1824. Among the 21-30 rankings, the University of New South Wales in the Netherlands ranks 21, the University of Rotterdam, Netherlands, Europe, ranks 22, and the University of Queensland ranks 29, maintaining the rising trend in front. However, the UK is not much behind the Netherlands, with the University of St. Andrews ranked 28th and the University of Manchester ranked 30th. So far, the UK continues to have 2 places in every 10, while the Netherlands has 34 places in the top 10, and the rest have 3 places. So far, among the top 30 universities, The Netherlands has 10 universities, while the UK has 6, and the remaining countries are competing for the remaining 14. Germany has 3, Austria-Hungary has 2, France has 2, Tsarist Russia has 2, the United States has 2, Denmark has 1, Spain has 1, and Italy has 1. William IV secretly said, "The Netherlands occupies exactly 1/3 of the top 30 universities, which can be said to be compared with the overlord of the United States in the previous life." Now the role of the United Kingdom is the same as the various university rankings of the United Kingdom in the 21st century in the previous life, and it has begun to enter the role of the millennium-old second. At present, he is very satisfied with the higher education in the Netherlands. Fortunately, the hard work of more than 20 years of education to establish the country has not been in vain, so he can't help but continue to read on, hoping that there will be more surprises. The arrangement of 31-40 is 31 Uppsala University, Sweden, 1477, 32 Yale University, USA, 1701, 33 University of Jakarta, Netherlands, 1859, 34 University of Lisbon, Portugal, 1288, 35 University of Salamanca, Spain, 1218, 36 University of Birmingham, England, 1826, 37 University of Utrecht, Netherlands, Europe, 1836, 38 University of Groningen, Netherlands, Europe, 1614, 39 University of Bologna, Italy, 1088, 40 University of Barcelona, Spain, 1450. The Netherlands has the most famous University of Jakarta in the Dutch East Indies, in the Far East, which ranks 33rd. This university was founded by William IV himself and is a Dutch university in the Far East. It is also the second university established by William IV during his time as Crown Prince. The first is the University of The Hague and the second is this university. It is reasonable to say that the University of Jakarta is the hard work of William IV, so he is the only director of the school and currently the only honorary president. Chapter 996, Fierce Competition for Talent Among the Three Parties. William IV is the founder of the University of Jakarta, and is also the current honorary president and sole director. According to this ranking list, the University of Jakarta is now ranked 11th among Dutch universities and 33rd in the world. Excluding 16 universities in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, the University of Jakarta ranks 17th. It can be said that it is growing rapidly. What's more, in addition to absorbing the Dutch East Indies, this university is also the first study abroad target in surrounding areas such as the Kingdom of Siam, Qing Dynasty, and Korea. At present, the university has more than 50,000 students, including 30,000 Dutch students, and the remaining 20,000 students are all international students. Therefore, this is considered a university for international study abroad for Asian students. Even the University of Queensland, located in Brisbane, the capital of Queensland, is difficult to match, because on the Australian continent, the University of Queensland is the university that recruits the most Latin American students. The university also recruits 50,000 people, but only 10,000 are from Latin America, and the rest of the students are from the Netherlands, where most of them are white Europeans. In the 31-40 ranking, the Netherlands also occupies the University of Jakarta at 33, the University of Utrecht at 37, and the University of Groningen at 38, adding up to 13 Dutch universities. The UK added the University of Birmingham at 36, making it 7 universities in the top 40. The United States added Yale University at 33, making it 3. Spain added the University of Salamanca at 35 and the University of Barcelona at 40, and a total of 3 universities entered the top 40. The University of Bologna in Italy entered the 39th place, giving Italy 2 universities in the top 20. Sweden had 1 university in the 31st place for the first time, and the University of Lisbon in Portugal entered the 34th place. As of 1-40, the list is: the Netherlands has 13 universities in the list, the United Kingdom has 7, Germany has 3, the United States has 3, Spain has 3, Tsarist Russia has 2, Austria-Hungary has 2, France has 2, Italy has 2, Denmark has 1, Sweden has 1, and Portugal has 1. The number of 13 universities also occupies nearly 1/3 of the total list, and it will even be nearly double the number of the 7 universities in the UK that rank second. Everyone understands what this means. so they can't wait to look down at the 40-50 rankings. This list only ranks the top 50 universities in the world, so the last 10 universities are also worth looking forward to. It is even the last round of struggle for each country to measure its educational strength and talent potential. Several people present couldn't wait to look down. But after seeing it clearly, they couldn't help but be surprised. The list of 40-50 is 41 Auckland National University, Netherlands, New Zealand, 1866, 42 University of Freiburg, Germany, 1457, 43 Heidelberg University, Germany, 1386, 44 Brown University, USA, 1764, 45 University of Northern Australia, Netherlands, 1864, 46 University of Göttingen, Germany, 1734, 47 University of Glasgow, UK, 1451, 48 Madonna University, Spain, 1743, 49 University of Grenoble, France, 1356, 50 National University of New Guinea, Port Moresby, New Guinea, Netherlands, 1864. The Netherlands added the University of New Zealand at 41st, the University of Northern Australia at 45th, and the University of New Guinea at 50th. The Netherlands occupies 16 universities in the top 50 of the total list. The United Kingdom added the University of Glasgow at 47th, a total of 8 universities. The United States added Brown University at 44th, making it 4th. In addition, Germany added 3 universities, the University of Freiburg at 42nd, the University of Heidelberg at 43rd, and the University of Göttingen at 46th, suddenly becoming 6 universities in the top 50 list. Spain added the University of Madison at 48th, which is also 4 universities with the United States. In addition, France added the University of Grenoble at 49th, making it 3rd. Minister of Education Marie-Philippe waited for 5 minutes before he spoke. Your Majesty, I have counted that in the New World University Rankings, the Netherlands has 16 universities on this list of only 50 top universities in the world, and they are the best: 1 University of Sydney, New South Wales, 2 University of Melbourne, 3 University of Amsterdam, formerly the capital, now the capital of West Holland, 4 Australian National University, William Province, formerly Victoria State during the British period, 5 University of The Hague, South Holland, 6 University of Adelaide, South Australia, 7 University of Western Australia, 8 University of New South Wales, 9 University of Rotterdam, South Holland, 10 University of Queensland, 11 University of Jakarta, Dutch East Indies, 12 Utrecht University, East Holland, 13 University of Groningen, North Holland, 14 Auckland National University, New Zealand, 15 University of Northern Australia, 16 National University of New Guinea. The second is the United Kingdom, which has only half of the number of schools in the Netherlands, 8. The third is the German Empire with 6 schools. The United States and Spain each have 4 schools. France has 3 schools in total. The Austro-Hungarian Empire has 2 schools. The Russian Empire has 2 schools. Italy has 2 schools. Denmark has 1 school, Sweden has 1 school, and Portugal has 1 school. As Marie-Philippe's data appeared, the people present changed their colors again. As for why these people changed their colors, it was naturally because they were happy that so many Dutch schools were shortlisted for the global list, and at the same time, they began to make their own calculations. William IV naturally knew the reason. Socialist Party ruling areas: William Province, formerly Victoria, Western Australia, South Pacific Province, Dutch Guinea Province, Tasmania Province, Sulawesi Maluku Province, New Zealand Province, South Holland Province, North Belgium Province. Christian Party ruling areas: New South Wales Province, Northern Australia Province, New Guinea Island Province, West Dutch East Indies Province, Sumatra Island Province, East Kalimantan South Kalimantan Province, North Holland Province, East Holland Province. Opposition Liberal Party ruling areas: South Australia, Queensland Province, Hawaii Province, Alaska Peninsula Province, Sumatra Island Province, Hawaiian Islands Province, Madagascar Island Province, West Holland Province. In order to ensure fairness and justice in the electoral districts of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, since 1871, The European territory of the Netherlands has been divided into four major parts, namely North Holland Province, East Holland Province, West Holland Province, South Holland Province, and the returned Belgian part is directly called North Belgium Province as a whole. In other words, the European territory of the Netherlands has become 5 provinces to participate in the Dutch general election. Looking at these 3-party ruling regions, and then looking at the list of universities on this university ranking, it is no wonder that these people look unhappy. Corresponding to these ruling regions, we can see how great the potential of the 3-party ruling regions in attracting talents is. Chapter 997, Dissatisfaction of Kaiser Wilhelm I. The ranking in the Netherlands is 1. University of Sydney, New South Wales, 2. University of Melbourne, Melbourne, 3. University of Amsterdam, formerly the capital, now the capital of West Holland, 4. Australian National University, Wilhelm Province, formerly Victoria State during the British period, 5. University of The Hague, South Holland, 6. University of Adelaide, South Australia, 7. University of Western Australia, 8. University of New South Wales, 9. University of Rotterdam, South Holland, 10. University of Queensland, 11. University of Jakarta, Dutch East Indies, 12. Utrecht University, East Holland, 13. University of Groningen, North Holland, 14. Auckland National University, New Zealand, 15. University of Northern Australia, 16. National University of New Guinea. Separately from the list above, the regions governed by the Christian Party, the largest party in the ruling coalition, have the following prestigious universities: the University of Sydney, ranked first in the world, first in the Netherlands; the University of Melbourne in the capital Melbourne, ranked second in the world, second in the Netherlands; the University of Jakarta, ranked 11th in the world, 33rd in the world; the University of Utrecht, ranked 12th in East Holland, 37th in the world; the University of Groningen, ranked 13th in North Holland, 38th in the world; the University of Northern Australia, ranked 15th, 45th in the world; and the University of New Guinea, ranked 16th, 50th in the world. A total of 7 prestigious universities ranked among the top 50 in the world. The second largest party in the ruling coalition, the Socialist Party, the Australian National University in the Netherlands, ranked 4th, 10th in the world, in the province of Wilhelm, formerly Victoria; the University of The Hague ranked 5th, 12th in the world, in the province of South Holland; the University of Western Australia ranked 7th, 19th in the world, in the province of Western Australia; the University of Rotterdam ranked 9th, 22nd in the world, in the province of South Holland; Auckland National University ranked 14th, 41st in the world. The Socialist Party governed areas have 5 of the top 50 universities in the world. Famous universities in the areas governed by the opposition Liberal Party: the University of Amsterdam ranked 5th in the world, 3rd in the Netherlands, in the province of West Holland; the University of Adelaide ranked 6th, 17th in the world, in the province of South Australia; the University of Queensland ranked 10th, 29th in the world, in the province of Queensland. The opposition party has 3 famous universities in total. On October 15, 1881, the new issue of the Global University Rankings under the European Times caused a huge response around the world as soon as it was announced. The ranking of universities in various countries in the world has attracted great attention, and even once compared with the war in Mexico. Under the unprecedented attention, there is no harm without comparison. The Netherlands occupies 16 of the top 50 universities. Compared with only nearly a quarter 3 years ago, the Netherlands has increased to nearly a third 3 years later. This has once again refreshed people's attention and cognition of the country, which was originally the strongest in global higher education. These 16 world-famous universities in the Netherlands have become closely watched by global international students and domestic students. I believe that they will be full again in the next academic year. At the same time, other educational powers such as Britain, Germany, Spain, the United States, France, etc. will definitely not give up learning the Dutch education model, especially 3 years after the new President of the United States, Stephen Douglas, came to power and called on the United States Congress to pass large-scale financial funds to support the United States. As a result, 3 years later, the United States has reaped the rewards. The United States has only 2 universities in the top 50, Harvard University and Columbia University. 3 years later, it has added 2 universities, Yale University and Brown University, reaching 4 universities. This data is the same as that of the old power Spain. Even the educational power France cannot compare with it, with only 3. With the United States in front, other countries naturally learned from the Dutch education model. Especially those small and medium-sized countries, such as Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Belize, Honduras, Costa Rica, etc. Now almost every year there are dozens of hundreds of thousands of people going to the Netherlands to study, and now they also learn from Sweden, Denmark, the Kingdom of Siam, etc. Hundreds of thousands of people go to the Netherlands to study. It is said that the number of students from the Qing dynasty who study in the Netherlands every year has exceeded 1,000, which is terrifying. Some of these students have completed their studies. Some are unwilling to go back and want to seek better development in the Netherlands. After all, the working environment and treatment here are not comparable to those after returning to China, especially for science majors. For liberal arts majors, it is still possible to enter politics after returning. After all, they are very popular in China with their Dutch study abroad qualifications. For powerful countries, the Dutch higher education teacher education power once again surprised Europe. It has naturally become a trend to follow the Netherlands. The Netherlands has once again become a model for education circles around the world. German Empire, Berlin. German Prime Minister Bismarck looked at the global ranking list of the European Times in his hand and felt pressure in his heart. German Emperor William I said unhappily, this year's list of the latest ranking of global universities in 1881, as in the past, not only includes Germany, but also includes well-known schools and other educational powers around the world. First of all, the top 10 situation. The top 10 of the global university rankings this time are still occupied by the Netherlands and the United Kingdom 60%. Among the top 5, the University of Cambridge and the University of Oxford in the UK, which had undergone earth-shaking changes, could only rank 3rd and 4th, while the Netherlands occupy the 1st, 2nd and 5th places. In particular, the University of Cambridge dropped 2 places and directly fell to 3rd place. The University of Sydney and the University of Melbourne moved up 1 place, surpassing the University of Cambridge and ranking 1st and 2nd. The University of Oxford continued to rank 4th, and the University of Amsterdam ranked 5th. The highest-ranked non-Dutch and British universities are Humboldt University of Berlin in Germany, the University of Vienna in Austria-Hungary, the University of St. Petersburg in the Russian Empire, and the University of Paris in the Second French Empire, ranking 9th. And the 10th place is still a Dutch university, called the Australian National University. William I said dissatisfiedly, in the entire list, the Netherlands has 16 universities on the list, the United Kingdom has 8, and with 1 more, the 2 countries have reached 25, occupying half of the country. It is no wonder that William I was dissatisfied. Although the German Empire had a large number of universities, reaching 6, there was still a big gap with the second educational power, Britain. Britain had Cambridge University and Oxford University in the top 5. Humboldt University of Berlin was only 6th, and even the University of London in the 11th place. The next university in Germany was the University of Munich, which ranked 14th, but between 10 and 20 there was the University of Edinburgh, which ranked 16th in the UK. The UK had 4 universities in the top 20, and the Netherlands had 7. Germany had only 2, and Tsarist Russia was closely behind, also with 2. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 998 Germany's Response Plan. Since I took power in the Kingdom of Prussia, I have been advancing step by step with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the French Empire, and the United Kingdom to surpass their goals. Now the German Empire has always been famous in the world as a new power. The original target was only Austria-Hungary, France, and Britain. Now the Austro-Hungarian Empire was already afraid of us in 1867 and was even willing to rely on us. The French Empire was divided into 2, and the civil wars in Paris and Lyon could start at any time, not to mention threatening us. Their internal friction is too beneficial to us. Originally, we only had Britain and Tsarist Russia as our targets. The Tsarist Russian Empire was only half, because the country was too poor, and only weapons, serfs and agricultural products were left. And it was restricted to land, but it was Britain, which was our biggest opponent. Haha, no one expected that the Netherlands would migrate to the Far East, away from our means of balancing their homeland. The sky is high and the birds fly freely. Now Britain has also been pulled down by the Netherlands in the field of education, and the Netherlands has risen by itself, and it is leading the world. A small country like the Netherlands can rise to the top, but our German Empire can only admire the last place in the top 3. America is not even close to us in terms of quality, and Spain is also catching up. Everyone here, if we don't work harder, be careful that our status as an emerging power will really be surpassed by the Netherlands in the field of education. The people present understood William I's dissatisfaction very well. The rapid rise of the Netherlands was something that he, the German Emperor, and the German Prime Minister Bismarck, the Chief of the General Staff, Moltke the Elder, and the Minister of War and Government Roon did not expect. Many of Bismarck's plans at the time were realized. Austria-Hungary was overthrown and expelled from the German Confederation. After Prussia became the leader, it began to fight against France in 1870, reached Paris, and captured the French emperor. In the end, France not only paid compensation everywhere, but also Bismarck used a trick to split this powerful neighbor in the south to prevent it from rising again. However, despite the day and night defense and calculations, they did not expect that the Netherlands, which was originally sandwiched between Britain, France and Germany, would rise so fast that no one had a countermeasure, and the Netherlands successfully rose and became one of the few powerful countries in the world. Even Britain and Germany now dare not easily attack the Netherlands. This made it difficult for Bismarck and William I to continue their plan, so they had to form a German-Austrian alliance with Austria-Hungary to seek a new situation, let Austria-Hungary and the Netherlands confront each other, and Germany took the opportunity to intervene when the situation was right. But seeing that the Netherlands was still rising so fast, William I couldn't help it, he was anxious. Bismarck, Roon, and Moltke looked at each other, and then the Minister of Military Affairs Roon said, "Your Majesty, the education in the Netherlands is now the best in the world. Not to mention us, even Britain, the strongest country in the past, is very troubled." When the Minister of Military Affairs Roon talked about Britain's headache, William I felt more comfortable. Military and Political Minister Roon continued, "From the perspective of a legal professional, the world's top university rankings are now dominated by Dutch and British universities. Almost all of the top 5 rankings are from Dutch and British universities. Even the small university rankings in continental Europe are not ranked outside the Netherlands and the UK. Why is this the case?" William I asked, "What's the reason?" Military and Political Minister Roon, "I observed for a long time before I discovered part of the reason. Strength determines everything. The strength of a country is the real determinant of a university's ranking." He continued, "Why do I say that? This is reality. The so-called most authoritative university rankings in the world that we usually come into contact with, that is, the global university rankings published annually by the European Times, are all over the place, and are almost all dominated by the Netherlands and the UK. This list has been around for 20 years since 1862. Have we become accustomed to it and turned a blind eye? Or have we chosen to be blind and seamlessly connected? Since everyone has become accustomed to it, it has become normalized psychologically." Bismarck said at this time, "Mr. Roon, what you mean is that we should not focus on this list, but set up a pro-German list, or directly set up our own list secretly or openly." William I was moved when he heard this. In fact, who in the world's top leaders does not know that the European Times belongs to the Duchy of Luxembourg, and the Duchy of Luxembourg is indeed the private territory of each king of the Dutch royal family. It is equivalent to being controlled by King William IV of the Netherlands. This list is more direct, that is, the Netherlands has given itself an advantage in the ranking. Although the Netherlands has never denied it, it has never dared to admit it. Bismarck, over the years, the Netherlands has relied on its influence, and almost all international students around the world regard it as a paradise. The Netherlands has achieved its goal of increasing its high-end population and young labor force. This is when I was in Prussia, which had just conquered the entire German Confederation, and faced new attacks from the Netherlands after the implementation of the policy of prohibiting population outflow. Alice, Although the German Empire as a whole has less population outflow, due to the autonomy of various countries, especially Bavaria, Württemberg, Saxony in the south, they are very dissatisfied with Prussia's rule, and many people have long complained about it. Therefore, the Netherlands' developed economy and educational environment are very attractive to their vision of the next generation, and it is too siphoning for people in these places. If our universities can enter the top 5, and even compete with the Netherlands or the United Kingdom in terms of quantity and quality, then we can be more attractive to recruit talents. However, Mr. Ron, this list of the Netherlands has gone through a process from unfamiliarity to familiarity, and then to dependence and authority. Military and political minister Ron waved his hand, and then said helplessly, "The first person to do it will always be popular, and we can only start from scratch." Moltke the Elder's eyes moved between the two of them, and then he said to William I, "Your Majesty, I feel that since the authority is not strong enough to compare with the Dutch list, why don't we come up with another trick?" William I asked with interest. How? Bismarck and others were also curious. No one dared to underestimate the strategy of Moltke the Elder, the German chief of staff, so everyone took it very seriously. Moltke the Elder smiled and said, "Since Germany alone does not agree with this ranking, why don't we find a few countries to do it together, such as the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the United States of America?" William I was stunned at first, and then he showed excitement. "Yes, in this way, the American position neutralizes the biased positions of Germany and Austria, and it can absorb the approval of some people. Let's do it." No one else objected. Chapter 999, Archduke Ferdinand, continued to send 30,000 troops to Mexico. Austria-Hungary, Vienna. Franz Joseph I smiled coldly after receiving the telegram from William I. "An indisputable fact, you and I have long accepted this fact. There is a natural admiration for the universities in the Netherlands and England, and almost no one dares to refute it. Looking at the German Empire, which person or which school is not fascinated by the universities in the Netherlands and England? The army of going abroad is surging, and it is time to stop and rest. Although our domestic policies have reduced the number of people studying abroad in the German Empire, there are still waves of people who are not afraid of death. Now the British government has even rejected some of our students on the grounds of confidentiality leakage and set up various obstacles, thinking that this can stop our army on the European land. But what London does not know is that these people are flowing to the Netherlands, which is willing to accept them. The dispute between the Netherlands and Britain has become more simple and confusing. At this point, I think Britain is suspected of being completely defeated." Archduke Ferdinand also said coldly, "Although Berlin's proposal is good, even the Austrian-Hungarian University of Vienna and other higher education institutions have created a university alliance list. In the end, it was discovered that this list follows the path of the global university rankings of the Dutch European Times. It may be a shortcut to follow other people's lists and the universities listed above, but it is still a dog-licking action. Why do universities in countries such as Spain, Sweden and Denmark, which have close relations with the Netherlands, often rank high in the rankings? The reason is simple: these three countries belong to the Dutch allies. For the Dutch, this is a familiar recipe and familiar ingredients, and the usage is very suitable. The authority of this ranking is destined to play its role. As the saying goes, people go to high places and water flows to low places. This is human nature. We can understand the wishes and ideas of those who want to study in the top universities, because everyone's values and survival methods are different. Why did the Russian Empire have 3 universities in the top 50? The industrial strength of the Russian Empire was not as good as that of Austria-Hungary. St. Petersburg University even entered the top 10. The reason is simple. The Russian Empire is a powerful country. Who would not be afraid of this country that dared to compete with Britain for hegemony over the Eurasian land and compete with Britain everywhere? The United States has risen rapidly, and its industrial strength has ranked 4th in the world. It has a population of 30 million and 15 million in the south, which has surpassed Britain and France, and is close to the powerful countries of Russia and the German Empire. Such a country has extraordinary potential, and the Netherlands dare not underestimate it. Therefore, in the eyes of this Dutch newspaper, the list should give face to these powerful countries, and at the same time recognize their strength, which comes from the results of education and training. Therefore, this list has to take care of them even if they don't want to, and they have to obey even if they don't want to. Similarly, why has the UK been in the forefront for the past 20 years? The fact that 2 British universities are in the top 5 is a display of Britain's global hegemony. Britain is so arrogant. If Britain is treated too badly, Britain will never agree. So the Dutch are smart. In the past 19 years, the University of Cambridge and the University of Oxford have taken turns to sit on the championship throne. Only this year did the UK leave the top two and enter third place, but it still maintains the third and fourth positions. Obviously, the Netherlands still gives Britain a lot of face. The Netherlands is also afraid of provoking the dissatisfaction of Britain for no reason, especially the British academic community, so the Netherlands gives them face, which is a manifestation of strength. Franz Joseph I sighed, for decades, we have been slowly falling behind Britain and France. We thought that after the French Napoleonic War, Austria-Hungary could rise again, but after the rise of Prussia, we were even more uncomfortable. After all, France was far away from us before, and even Prussia, Germany, was too close to us, making us breathless. Archduke Ferdinand also said, for decades, we have been inferior to others in skills, equipment, and strength. Even our own national education is not as strong as that of the Netherlands, Britain, or even the German Empire. Our educational thinking is still stuck in the past, but others are several steps faster than us, which objectively has somewhat eroded our minds. He said, to be realistic, today Austria-Hungary is the world's sixth largest pre-industrial economic power after the Netherlands, Britain, the German Empire, France, and the United States. The history of our University of Vienna is not shorter than that of universities in other countries, and even education is not bad. Politically, we are not as influential, but we lost some face after being defeated by Germany a few years ago, but it does not hinder our pace of progress. In terms of military, our army is undoubtedly first-rate in terms of various guns, strategies and tactics, as well as confrontation between arms. However, in terms of the number and quality of surface ships and underwater submarines, we still have a lot to overcome. This is why we have stepped up our actions in Mexico this time. We have too few ports, which affects our room for improvement at sea. These are our achievements and shortcomings to be addressed. Franz Joseph I and Archduke Ferdinand, the uncle and nephew, expressed various exclamations, but fortunately there were only the two of them here. Franz Joseph I said, our shortcoming is that our industrial technology is still far from the world's first, second and third most advanced technological countries. The most advanced technology is not in our hands. This is the result of our Austro-Hungarian Empire's preference for liberal arts and neglect of science education. The University of Vienna, like St. Petersburg University, emphasizes liberal arts. In addition, like Tsarist Russia, we did not create an environment that provides employment and high income for science. Therefore, our science graduates or those who want to become science students flock to the Netherlands, Britain and Germany. The reason is that our education, especially the number of prestigious universities, is still small, and the industrial cultivation is not in place. If the Austro-Hungarian Empire can provide such jobs, create jobs for these people as soon as they graduate, and still have high salaries and connect with the industries they studied, then with a population of more than 30 million, the Austro-Hungarian Empire will at least not lag behind Germany, France and the United States. After all, many immigrants in these countries are still Austro-Hungarian immigrants. Archduke Ferdinand said, if there is such a day, then we can take policy measures to increase the attractiveness of overseas students returning home, let foreign countries train students for us, and we pick peaches. Unfortunately, it is still a long way from that day. He said unwillingly, strength determines mentality. What we are competing with Britain, Germany, France, Russia, the United States and other countries is the world's number one. We must compete with these countries, although it may be difficult for us to achieve the planned results. But we still need to make efforts and let those countries dominate for a while, because sooner or later we will catch up, especially Germany, which is both our enemy and ally. Franz Joseph I said dissatisfiedly, we asked William I of the German Empire for help on the Mexican issue, but there has been no response. It seems that we have to rely on ourselves. Archduke Ferdinand, it is said that it is better to rely on ourselves than on others. This time, we must show our own prestige. I suggest that we continue to increase our troops by 30,000 in Mexico. Only when we take over there can our naval construction be counted as a global power. Franz Joseph I nodded and said, okay. Chapter 1000, Troubles in the White House. United States of America, Washington, White House. Stephen Douglas has been having a headache recently. Facing the American election that will officially begin in December this year, He needs to keep running around to attract supporters. At the same time, he also needs to face the attacks from the Republican Party. Garfield is a very difficult guy. The current polls on both sides are very close, which makes this election stalemate and difficult to determine. It was not like this originally. He could still use the advantage of being in power to get more support for himself. However, the war launched by Austria-Hungary in Mexico a few months ago made his previous approach of befriending Germany and Austria to check and balance the Netherlands and Britain seem a little pale and powerless. Austria-Hungary actually launched an invasion war, and Germany endorsed it behind the scenes. Germany's close exchanges with the United States in the past suddenly became the target of his attacks. The Republican Party now holds on to its close relationship with Germany and asks him to persuade Germany and Austria-Hungary to withdraw their troops, implement the Monroe foreign policy that the United States has always followed, and prevent Europe from intervening in America and prevent European countries from invading America. Although he countered by asking why the Republican Party did not stand up to oppose the earlier alliance between the Netherlands, the Republican Party's ally, and Latin America, the Republican Party refuted him by saying that peace and war cannot be compared. This comparison made Stephen Douglas unable to refute. Indeed, the invasion of the Austro-Hungarian Empire made him very difficult and put him in a dilemma. He didn't want to think about this, but when he thought about the recent sensational global university rankings, his head hurt even more. The talent pool of Dutch and British universities is indeed amazing. For example, Britain first recruited a group of talents from the surrounding countries occupied by France during the Napoleonic Wars, and took in a lot of Jewish talents during the period. The Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of the Austrian Empire, Metternich, later directly immigrated to London, which shows how attractive it is. After the Napoleonic Wars, Britain went out to France to pull a group of talents. Even Napoleon I was exiled to Britain. Think about it, the head of a country has been locked up by others, and all the secrets of this country have been known to Britain. Now they are constantly drawing blood from the French division and the British colonies. With such a talent pool, isn't it normal for scientific research to be good? This made Stephen Douglas very envious. In addition, after years of promotion, Dutch is now a world-class language. It should be noted that Dutch belongs to the Indo-European language family, Germanic language family, West Germanic language family. Before 1860, the users were mainly distributed in the Netherlands, Belgium, South Africa, Dutch Suriname, also known as Dutch Guinea, the Caribbean Dutch Andros Islands, the Dutch East Indies, etc. There are many variants of spoken Dutch, from standard language to local dialects. The other side allows the use of the language in public occasions, official conversations, documents and university lectures. The spoken language is used in the family with friends and fellow countrymen. The dialect is closer to Standard Dutch than the dialects of other dialect areas. After William IV came to power in December 1861, he made great efforts to promote the national language unification of Dutch, which facilitated the export and dissemination of Dutch. The Netherlands' global allies circle has been expanding again and again. The rise of the Netherlands' economic and political status has made the Dutch language gradually popular in these countries. The number of study abroad places provided by the Netherlands has increased its attractiveness. The jobs in the Netherlands have gradually become popular in other countries including the Russian Empire, from Sweden, Denmark and Greece at the beginning. With the addition of Latin American students and labor, Dutch has become the first foreign language in various countries. Even in the United Kingdom, France and Germany, Dutch has become the fourth language after English, French and German. Latin American countries have become the first choice after Spanish. Even in many countries such as Ecuador, Chile, Peru and Bolivia, the promotion of Dutch is almost implemented from top to bottom. Many people speculate that in another 10 or 8 years, Dutch speakers may be able to compete with Spain. Even in the United States of America, the Dutch originally accounted for only 1/20th of the country's total population, but because the Dutch controlled many newspapers and capital consortiums in the country, the Dutch even promoted Dutch communication and factory education, making the Dutch language more popular in the United States in recent years than French and German. It is said that among the 30 million people in the northern United States, more than 5 million people can speak Dutch for daily use, and most of these people are middle-class families or individuals, which has a great influence on the United States. You must know that English is not yet a compulsory learning era. English is only spoken by 8 million people, German is spoken by more than 7 million people, and French is spoken by only 3 million people, so Dutch has become the third language. Dutch is the first foreign language even in the Kingdom of Siam, Qing Dynasty, and Guerrilla Kingdom in the Far East. Even in hostile Argentina, Dutch is the first foreign language. The same is true for allies such as Greece and Spain. The Dutch speakers have long formed a global scale. In addition to the International Red Cross headquartered in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, the International Court of Justice headquartered in The Hague, the Netherlands, the International Olympic Committee headquartered in Amsterdam, the International Labour Union, the World Free Trade Organization, the International Football Federation, Oxfam, the International Telegraph Union, the Pacific Rim Parliamentary Organization, the International Organization for Migration, the Netherlands and the World Customs Union Organization, the Pacific Community Organization, the International Maritime Transport Association, the International Music Council, the International Bicycle Race, the International Industrial Union, Oxfam, the International Labour Organization, the International Women's Alliance, the International Telegraph Association, the International Association of Journalists, the International Association of Universities, and the World Intellectual Property Association, all of which are headquartered in Sydney, Australia, the Far East of the Netherlands. These organizations were created by the Netherlands in the past 20 years when William IV was in power. Naturally, their headquarters were all settled in cities in the Netherlands. In order to send personnel to these cities in the Netherlands, countries have to learn Dutch. After all, the official language used by these organizations is Dutch. Therefore, Dutch has become a world language. Now countries like to use Dutch when publishing articles and patents in newspapers, and they all look like Dutch. Since these countries and organizations use Dutch, their internationalization level is naturally very high. Under these premises, with the blessing of the Dutch language, the rankings of these Dutch universities will naturally rise. Also, their rankings are still in the Dutch newspaper European Times, which uses the rules formulated by the Netherlands, which must be more or less beneficial to them. Of course, the fact that the Netherlands is rich is also a very important factor. How can you do research without money, right? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.